Hello, everyone, and welcome as we celebrate the release of our first anthology in the Horrific Tales series. I'm joined by a few of the contributing authors whose valued contribution have helped make this possible. Spend some time with us now as we discuss all things that relate to hauntings. First of all, welcome everyone. The only people who couldn't make it because of prior commitments were Steve and Katie, unfortunately, but
Oh,
more or less everyone's here. Great
yeah,
turnout. Great to have you on board.
Hi.
yeah.
Hello.
Happy to be here.
Yeah. So
Hi.
get ready for live goodness and all that. We'll just try and I'll just do the usual round robin sort of method, but that doesn't last very long because once the conversation starts, we'll just go on tangents and do the usual. You know how it is.
Grievously, yes.
So while we're all here, the point is basically just to have fun. And for me, first of all, to say thank you very much for taking part in this. This is obviously the first anthology in this venture. I'll not lie, I was kind of shitting myself a bit getting this all put together because first time, a lot of expectations, and also when it's not just yourself and you've got other people contributing, you kind of get a bit paranoid, like going, am I letting these folks down? Am I going to arse this up and make everybody look stupid? And all sorts of stuff. Like Demi spelling your surname wrong, leaving out the CH, like stupid things like that, which you're like, oh my god, I'm an idiot. Why am I doing this? And there's all sorts going on just right before release. And, but it's a fun thing to do. I have to say, taking something from an idea of here's another one of Colin's mad ideas, let's see if it works. And then actually getting a product at the end of it produced, that people have all contributed to. It's an amazing thing.
Oh yeah. Right, so you should feel proud of it. Yeah.
Oh, I am. I'm really stoked. And that's why I want to do these all on. Not just plug and get this, but I want to celebrate. I want to thank you all. I want to speak to you. I want people to get to know rather than just a word or a name behind a story. I want people to get to know you. And that's it. And just talk shite as usual because that's what we love to do here. So some of you are brand new, some of you are part of the furniture, some of you are intermediate. There's all sort of things. So what we'll do, I'll go anti-clockwise. I'll start with Tony. Just if everyone gives a brief introduction and just that style of writing, any other projects you've got on the go, apart from writing, you've got podcasts or blogs or whatever, just basically let people what you're about. So Tony, would you like to start us off?
Yeah, hi. It's good to be back. This is my fourth go round on the show. And my most recent work is Dreaded Invocations, a short story collection, and I do the Comic Book Ruminations audio series, which is an audio podcast, kind of like an audiobook, and got some movie projects in the works. They're coming out in 2025, and got a cyberpunk book coming out. So I've been just very busy, and I'm over here and spend my time in Thailand. That's pretty much where I spend the bulk of my time and try to be productive while I'm here.
Fantastic. Dale, I think we've seen you once or twice on here. Can you count how many times you've
Yeah, maybe. About 150 times. Yeah, I'm part of the furniture now. Yeah, so I write dark, paranormal, horror, ghost stories, some non-fiction work. I'm doing a biography at the moment on a controversial filmmaker. So that's a huge project I've got on. Plus this anthology, which is awesome. I'm glad that I got to contribute to that. So I do lots of reviews on this channel with Colin. So every fortnight we're doing reviews on TV series and some horror films and things like that. And I run a Facebook group as well called Horror Central. And as of today, I've got 40,000 members, which is really good.
And
wow.
And
yeah.
Which is that should be a badge in itself.
And what?
Minimal drama.
Yep. No drama. Yep. I'm a bit tough with my group. If there's any negative shit coming through, I get rid of them. just to get rid of them. Yeah, so I mean, I was doing some beta reading and some ARC reading as well for other authors, but that was really time consuming. It would take me like maybe 4 or 5 days to get through a manuscript of 200 pages, and then to write up a review. So I was like, so I've had to give that one a bit of a rest for now. So on my YouTube channel, I also do reviews, a little of independent films only. I'm only doing independent films. So yeah, that's sort of what I do. So, yeah.
So not busy at all then.
Yeah, that's me. No, not busy at all. Oh yeah, plus all the 5 kids I've got and my animals and yeah, basically.
Life of luxury. John, this is your first time. Welcome. Great to have you on board.
Good to be here, Colin. How's things? That's my name's John. I write. I've written forever, publishing novels and novellas. But my primary focus is in conventions, where I work at Worldcon, EasterCon, FantasyCon, and run my own convention, which is more games based than everything else, as people might tell from the wee bookshelf here, which is the games I actually play rather than the other bookshelf, which is all the games I don't play, which is in a different room. But yeah, I mean, I'm currently working on 4 different, 3 novellas, 1 novel, a variety of short stories, and a few other bits and pieces. But as I said, stay busy, because if you don't, the world gets dull, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think that's the killer, isn't it? If you're just completely inactive and you're just sitting staring at the ceiling, you have to just grab life and go for it, because
I'm always reminded. People say that the day job is only on the weekend for 25 hours the weekend, and I'm like, yes, that is the day job. Yes, I agree. And when you count the other 6, I'll start thinking about it. But one of those things. So, there we go.
Demi, another new member. Welcome.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. So a little intro about me. I primarily write young adult fiction. I'm represented by Michelle Johnson at LCS Literary, where I primarily write YA fantasy and thriller. But I recently started getting into short stories in 2024. That's basically how I stayed staying while being on submission. But along with being an author, I am the host of a podcast called Literary Blend. I am also a freelance editor through Amethyst Ink Editorial, my own services. I am a publicist at Wilding Publishing. Next week, I will be starting as an intern at the Purcell Agency. And so I'm very busy, but I'm also, when I'm not doing all the publishing things, I am also an award-winning songwriter and recording artist. So, yeah.
Another person just life of luxury, not busy at all.
Oh.
Is this the thing? Everyone's come on here must have a minimum of 10 things going on at once.
Well,
The life of an author.
Yeah, but it's not that the thing. They always say, if you want to get something done, give it to a busy person.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
It's always the
We've got
way.
to do it quickly, otherwise we can't do everything else.
That's here, because it's like I have to have a go at this, have to have a go at that. It's there. I haven't done it yet. I must do it. I think if you're in that mindset, you can't help yourself.
Nope, it's not that. It's the
No.
simple thing that none of us have learned how to say no.
This is true.
Can you help us with Worldcon? No. Can you help us with EasterCon? No.
Yeah.
This does not happen. Ask anybody.
Off this channel. It's just,
No.
I don't have time, but I can make it. Who needs sleep?
Yeah.
And of course, we've got Lee. Welcome back, buddy.
Welcome. Yes. My name's Lee, as you can tell. I've written for many years. I'm chasing the elusive dream of being traditionally published. I've wrote about 3 novels, a couple of novellas, a handful of short stories. Currently working on a novella right now that is drastically turning into a novel. It's at 47,000 words and climbing, but I'm having a lot of fun with it. So it's all good. And obviously, as a side thing, I did the story for the anthology as well. And I guess in my spare time, beyond I've got to come up with like a list as long as my arm now, haven't I, to keep
Yeah,
up
the
with
pressure's on now. I'll pair Phoebe at the end. It's gonna be...
I am in a lot of stuff. I do. I actually do living history in my spare time. So you'll see me in the UK doing being a US soldier in World War II. I'm also part of like a writing group. I help run a writing group in Sheffield with John, my partner in crime, John. I've we've travelled this journey for years together.
Wingman for more than a decade.
That's right, yeah. And so, quite a few things going on. And that's obviously in addition to the day job where, for my sins, I work for a local council.
Oh, God,
but don't hold it against me. Yeah. But we did do some anthologies together previously to this, me and John and I.
Is it your job to make the potholes?
Say that again, sorry.
Do you go out making the potholes? Is that your job?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I just get people asking me about them, which is nothing to do with me.
Freaking hell, there's a place around
We've
here.
got the same problem.
Not too far away, Croydon, and that must be the pothole championship of Europe.
No,
honestly, you're like, like off-roading's easier.
Well, that's it.
Should ride an electric scooter in LA because don't take it full speed because if you come up on a pothole too quick, that wheel is going to get stuck and you're going to go right over those handlebars.
I learned in my mid-20s, two wheels are not for me.
Which one?
I rode off a Honda Fireblade and that was it. I was like, nah, I'm done. Finished. Never again. Yeah. And last but not least, welcome, Phoebe. This is your first time.
Yes, it is. Thank you for having me. So I'm a writer. I put out a short story collection a year or two ago called Superliminal Latency. 17 short stories, mostly horror and sci-fi. I run an independent comic book label brand. You can find all my stuff on indieplanet.com/123go. I think we have like 16 books up there plus my short story collection. And I write for a YouTube channel, Rock and Roll True Stories. And I have a novel that I'm working on.
Oh, fantastic. Is that sort of true crime or just general true stories? Is a particular
Rock and Roll True Stories it's not true crime. It's just like
is it actually rock and roll? It's musicians?
Yes.
Ah, right. So what's that? Is that your sort of Buddy Holly? This is where I'm going to sound really stupid.
So the guy who runs the channel, the guy who actually is on screen, is on camera and doing the episodes that me and a few other writers write for him. He's kind of into 90s rock more than anything, and so kind of a lot of it centers on 90s rock.
All right, good. We had a thing in the 90s. Remember Britpop?
Yes.
Just an absolute abortion to your ears.
Oasis, Blur, those guys.
Oh god, that was the whole thing, wasn't it? Was it Oasis or Blur? No, they're both shit.
Yeah, it was.
Go away. It sells over here.
Yeah, that's like everyone's over in the States have picked up on those two bands, haven't they? Like making a revival, and we were all over it at the time. It's like, why are we getting this shoved in our face?
Yeah. Yeah.
There is a lot of 90s nostalgia right now. We're kind of cashing in on it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of nostalgia right now, isn't there?
Well, everyone's frigging miserable. That's why.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's escapism in its purest form, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's arcing back. Yeah. I guess we're all part of it. Yeah. I love the 80s stuff.
But inherently, the problem is that like when we're in the writing group, Lee and I will often have a conversation about things that went on, and at least 2 or 3 of our members will turn around and go, "We weren't born."
Yeah.
At which point we're like, "I no longer feel great about it." Yes.
Somebody posted a meme earlier on about archaeologists, visiting ancient sites, and it was around a phone booth. And I was like, I remember when phone booths became old. Like I'm
Yeah.
that old that I even remember them becoming old while I got older.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to see the tail end of the 70s, like 76 to 79. And, there's so many, I mean, 1970s might as well be the 1870s because, it's just so far, it's moving so far into the past.
Yeah.
And, man, I mean, you had to be there you had to see the 70s in person. You just, it was whacked. It was really whacked.
You're being polite. It was worse than that.
I was still on
it's almost like an entire decade. It was like the history of the world, and then the 70s. It's just so different.
But we were talking about 70s films and the fact that they did not hold back.
No.
Like there was no messing about. In fact, I think the 70s are the reason why we've got labels and censorship and ratings, because it was the Wild West. Nobody anything went.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, with everything, everything was censored up until 68, 69, and then they, they went berserk as soon as you took the guardrails off them. Then you got Last House on the Left and all this other crazy stuff, like almost immediately. Deep Throat, all that stuff, man.
We didn't have censorship until Sir Peter Jackson started making videos. We had no censorship until he came along.
You know what happened with Bad Taste when it came out on VHS in the US?
Yeah, it was banned.
No, what happened was they came up with a video box, and it had a hand like this, the whatever, the alien or whatever had a hand like this, and it had like a serration.
Because he was doing the finger and
it said please
That's
remove.
right.
So when you removed it, it looked like this. So you go in the video store and you'd see the box, and then you'd see an X one, like they would take masking tape and they would have to tape over it.
Yep.
God, that's marketing in itself.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Like sometimes the censorship actually was a marketing tool. I want to get censored. I want to be controversial.
When Alien first came out,
really well. That did so well on VHS in the US. But
when
then
you
his next
censor it,
two
it makes
films
it better.
never got a release.
Makes it more appealing, doesn't it?
Well, that was the thing, though, wasn't it? 1979, Alien came out, and someone set fire to the Gramercy Theatre because they said it was the work of the devil.
Oh,
and all things considered, the response from the entire publishing team was great.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yep. Because everyone else suddenly went, yep, no problem. We're going to go see the work of the devil.
See that then?
Yeah.
It almost worked for The Exorcist as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the
projects wasn't that good, was it? I mean, that 2.5 hours of sand, and like, have we got to the end bit? Has the pea soup started coming out? It's like no, waiting for it.
Yum. Zombies.
Fun times.
An American Psycho coming wrapped up in cellophane, huh? That's a good publicity stunt.
Yeah.
That was great.
That's where I sort of at the moment have a problem with advertising in general, because everything's been done, every gimmick has been tried, and to do stuff now is almost cheesy and expected, so it has the opposite. What the original effect was, and now it has the opposite. Oh, frick, you're doing that again. Oh, sure, that's already been done. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah,
it's really hard.
It's true. Yeah.
But isn't that a good thing as well? Because then you can't be drawn in by the gimmick. It has to be by the quality of the item in question.
Yeah.
Well, if you look at social media and the stuff that trends and the videos and stuff, and look at YouTube, and it's all the gimmicks and the drama farmers and the scam artists are like millions of views, and the rest of us are just trying to chug along. Look at Tony and I were talking before we went live, actually. All the scammers that have come into indie publishing. And they're the ones that are getting all the sales and the attention and stuff, and the rest of us are just like buried under all the guff, and it's frustrating as hell.
Yeah.
I don't know how to, all to do is keep plugging away, obviously, and not give up, because that's trends come and go, and the scams get caught out, and then it moves on to something else. But if you've built a sort of legacy, I think that's only real way. But
that's a much bigger thing, isn't it? About like self-publishing and the thousands, probably tens of thousands of books that come out every day, and how you rise through all that.
Mm.
You know,
AI.
yeah, and the birth of AI. And what
Didn't end well for Neo, did it?
You know, the controversy with NaNoWriMo and things like that. If you know about that.
Oh God, yes, I remember that. That was a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
That
it was a big thing last year, though.
Was not like a writing sprint thing, or to do so many pages there. It was like a part of
Yeah.
a
Oh, yeah. It's been going for years.
Yeah. Well, NaNoWriMo is National Novel Writing Month, yeah. So you write a book in a month, and this year it had a lot of controversy because they put out a statement. Correct me if I'm wrong, John. That basically said, "We get that writing's hard, so if you want to use AI to write your book, that's okay by us." Which everybody were like, no.
Yeah. That was such a mess.
Yeah. It had a lot of kind of like backlash on it.
And a lot of things were they wouldn't confirm that they wouldn't allow submissions to the site not to be used by AI.
Yeah, that's right.
They later backpedaled and said they wouldn't let it be used. But in the initial part of it, they didn't say specifically, we won't let all these things be used for AIs. And everyone's like, nah, really?
That was a big thing, because in and of itself, who cares if you write AI to write your book, because the challenge is for yourself to write 50,000 words in a month. Defeats the object if you use AI, but ultimately who cares? But yeah, the big thing is that the sponsors and the things behind it allegedly were to do with feeding AI algorithms, and the work that you submit would ultimately help that, which is like no, that's not cool.
Well, here's the
Sometimes
thing.
I'll use AI for research, and I do cut and paste.
Yeah,
and
research.
I got a response. You know, it gave me this detailed, who would win between the Sixers and the Blackhawks, and I'm like reading it. I'm like, So I asked it. I said, what sport? Because Sixers play basketball, Blackhawks are a hockey team. You know, it didn't even. It just was bullshitting me.
Completely.
That's funny.
So that's how much I have that much trust in it.
But the thing is, everyone has their own sort of voice. Everyone has a particular patter about them, and obviously, this podcast has been going on for over 4 years, and some of you have featured as in the narrative fiction side of things. I can read 2 or 3 of your stories, and I know it's you. And if you submitted something by AI, I would know.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not Dale's work. That's not Phoebe's work. That's not. Hold on, Matt. John doesn't write like us. You know, it doesn't sit well. It's okay for memes and stuff. Like at the quick glance, you can sort of get away with it. But I think at the core, when it comes to creativity, it's a very human thing. It's a human to human connection. And if you don't have that, that's why we've all turned away from the corporate stuff, because it's so bland and beige and impersonal. And you don't know who it is. You don't know what it is. You just know it's some office somewhere, and there's no feeling behind it. And God, I just saw there's a document or a series coming out, and it looks so fake and horrible, featuring someone I don't like very much. But
come on,
what?
Which one?
You can't be leaving that one hanging. Come on.
Let's just say a member of the royal family, extended, is coming out with a new show.
It's not
It is so fake, like it's painful. You may as well get cardboard cutouts and like get a bit of string and pull them across the camera. It just looks that bad.
Wow.
I asked AI to make me a picture, and it was obvious they were taking Batman and they were just changing the cowl from black to yellow, and it's and I'm like, and I
you mean like every DC Comics reboot every 20 years?
They would put Batman's head on Green Lantern's body, but Green Lantern would have an orange suit and Batman would have a green mask, and I would say, could you not use Batman? And it would flag me and it would say, oh, you can't, in other words, don't use the word Batman because that's trademark. And I'm like, oh my God, If they hook the missiles up to this shit, we're
But isn't that the worry, though? That is the problem, though, isn't it? Because if everyone else now sees nothing but this stuff coming out, and the flood of the market is nothing but this, forgive me, crap, then eventually people are going to get to the point where you go, well, down goes the level of acceptance, and eventually people start going, well, it's not that bad. And 20 years later, it's not that bad. Until we're getting things that would have been given up by a 3-year-old, and we would have gone, that's written by a 3-year-old. But the general consensus, because that's all you've got now, because there's 10,000 novels a day coming out, every one of them published by some Yahoo who doesn't know anything, and isn't this the fear?
Mhm.
Those very few who have the originality, the creativeness, the human touch. Now, that whole thing where they said they're going to start leaving a marker on books that said written by a human. Yeah, no Skynet involved. Yeah. And isn't that the thing, though, when we start doing the whole, no, this was done by a human. Yeah, they may have run it through a spell checker, but that's not the same as really getting a damn AI to write it for them. You know.
And most submissions you go and submit for stories and stuff, they do specify now no AI generated stories.
Yeah.
Thank God.
AI also has a couple other issues. It's first of all, you can't, like in the U.S. It's not, you can't copyright AI because it was made by a machine, and a machine doesn't have rights. So there's no copyright that you can file on it. So anything you create is public domain. However, it's just pulling stuff from the internet, which means it's pulling copyrighted information. So you're going to publish something that you're going to get slapped with a lawsuit because you got
plagiarized.
Your program. Yeah, you know, I mean, very bad idea to publish something with that. You don't know where it's coming from. You know, like I said, I joke about the Batman thing, but I could see it's obvious. I even knew the artist was. I could see that was a Neil Adams. That was a Neil Adams art drawing that they just took, and they just you know, it's because it doesn't know, you know, and you know, it's like it couldn't tell just between the Sixers and the Blackhawks because it's just it's scanning the internet real quick, and it's getting bits and pieces from websites. Like if you go on Grok will actually, at the top it says 25 websites, and it says 18 Twitter posts. So it actually gives you the references where it got everything from. But if you're just going to say, people don't know this, they think it's just they think it's like, Colossus, the Forbin project or something like that, where it's this self-aware. It's not. It's just, it's amalgamating previously published material. Yeah. Now, if you want to know, I asked it. I just randomly said, "Hey, man, what does caffeine do in relation to your liver?" And it gives me and it talks about how caffeine protects the liver up to a certain milligram point. Because now it's going WebMD, it's going to the National Institute of Health and all that. But for resource material, it's pretty good. But if you're trying to crank out nonfiction or fiction material and publish it, you'll get in trouble. If you want to create an image, yeah, you can do it, but be careful what you don't slap that on a book cover. I mean, if you create an image and you put it on a Facebook post, nobody cares. You use it on TikTok, nobody cares. But if you put that on a book cover or you make a poster out of it, you might have trademark material that's out there, and you're even if you don't get hit with a legal action, they could complain to Amazon, complain to whoever, and they're just gonna Amazon or any company does not want somebody infringing on trademarks or infringing on copyrights, because now you're dragging them into the mess, because there's legal issues with I think in the US there was a really crazy lawsuit because the court established that retailers, like say eBay or whomever, if they sell if I go on there, sell a defective product, originally I'm liable. Now there are legal things where they can say eBay is liable because eBay gave me a platform. eBay's like, we got 1 million people, and they're like, then check a million people, and it's like, but that's all tied up in the courts. So, anything with the infringements of any kind, you're out of there.
Well, it's always in the back end of an incident, isn't it? These things don't come into being unless something actually happens.
And the other thing about this is that there's currently a consultation going on with the British government on the use of AI and the use of copyrights and everything else. There's a subsection in there that clearly states that anyone who makes something using an AI has made an original thing because it is drawn from several sources, because in the same way that humans draw from several different sources when they come up with things, the machine is drawing from several different sources. It was inspired by the prompt, but the work that it does is its own, and therefore can be copywrote. Now, this is only a consultation at the moment, but I've got to be honest, reading through the text of that thing, there's like 170 pages. It took me more than a week to get through the bloody thing because it's that dense. But a lot of the stuff in there, if they get that through,
bit worrying there.
It's massively concerning to me.
You were saying how the AI is easily identifiable as a AI story now, and it's low quality. But we're just at the the cusp of this. It's just begun, and it's going to get a lot better. Like if you look at the first video game, Pong, you wouldn't have imagined that 40 years later we would have real VR.
Video realistic.
So I think it's going to get a lot better over the next few decades.
The other thing with the AI is it can't draw from personal experience, so it can't nuance things. It's never gonna nuance a character the way Like I was telling Colin, like hanging around in the Snow White on Hollywood Boulevard. It's a freak show. It was an old dive bar, and you'll pick up. You see these stuff. It goes into your head, and then that nuance comes through the writing. It's a machine can't do that. Or
I didn't say never.
Yeah.
That's true, but then this is why we have to speak up, I think. It's not the way we want to go. It seems like the quick and easy route, but then what is the point? If you want to be a creator, you want to create.
No, that's if you're a creator. These people, for the most part, forgive me, and please note in the comments below if you disagree, but guess what? If you're just doing this, you're not a creator.
Yeah, that's you're a programmer. You're not even.
And the people who do creating, who have to do all this, who do it all from here and do it from there, we're the people doing the creating. And let's be honest, how many sequels have you seen to films that didn't need to be made?
Oh,
how many things have you seen where people have looked at it and gone, the first one did brilliantly. Let's do the exact same thing again, call it 2, and send it out again. And there it is. And it didn't do as well, but it's okay because it nearly made as much. Yeah. And the people who are just trying to grind through this stuff, they don't care about originality. They don't care about anything else. They care about how much money it makes.
But the long-term effect, look at movies now. Look at the apathy.
Yeah.
Look at the apathy towards movies. Nobody's excited.
Yeah.
And that's a long-term effect of, just like I said, there's not a creator. There's not a vision. There's not a better personality. It's just
going out in 2 weeks time on streaming.
Yeah.
Red 1 came out before Christmas ended. It was still on at the cinemas when they dropped it on the streaming services. You remember, particularly the older people in the group here, but you remember when a film came out in the 1980s and you had to wait between 6 months minimum and
only a year, wasn't it?
Anywhere else.
Yeah.
They grinded it out in the theaters, yeah.
We have talked about this on the channel. There's a whole ecosystem, and there was actually value because you had the secondary market, so you were making something not just to do well at the box office, but there was in the back of their mind the secondary market of home rental, or when it went transitioned into DVDs.
You had to see it at the cinema because if you didn't, it'd be at least a year before you got to see it. So
if you didn't have a VCR.
You know what I mean? And that's the thing. Whereas now you're like, okay, I can find it on YouTube 10 minutes afterwards.
Yeah, people don't go to the movies to watch the movie. They go out to go out. It's like dinner movie.
I can't tell you the last time I was at the movies. I literally can't tell you the last time I went to the theater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
June 2, I think, for me. Because, big screen.
I haven't in a while.
I used to go to the movies every Saturday, and that's Saturday,
Yeah.
every Sunday. Like I would go to the GCC Northeast in Philadelphia, because they had $4 for
Mhm.
for the mid afternoon show. And one of the main reason, I don't want to watch the movie, but I would go see anything. But we didn't have cable TV at the time, and you didn't have the internet, you didn't have this, that, the other thing. So that was
3 channels.
Yeah, you break the monotony by going to the movies. Yeah. At 3:00 in the morning, you turn the TV on, you got
test pattern.
Yeah, because they went off the air at 2:00.
Or we had a little picture of a little girl in front of a
freaky doll with a little girl.
freaky doll on a blackboard and
That's
stuff.
just wrong, This is
They
how
used
the
to play
world
the
ends.
national anthem. They would sign off with the national anthem, and then and I remember it was on Facebook, and they're like, "Do you remember that
Poltergeist thought as well?" Yeah, we know all that from Poltergeist.
Oh.
Every time I see a "Do you remember?" I say, I didn't know they stopped doing it.
Grievously, yes.
Oh dear about it.
Yeah.
But back to the thing. I think we need to. I think emphasize. That's why I'm doing this as well, because we need to emphasize the human touch.
Yeah.
It's all right shaking our fists and going, "Rah," but this is how we beat it. This is how we stay. We let people see I'm a person. I've had experiences in life. That's what I've decided to channel through to make something. Rather than just be a passerby. I decided to engage with the world, and that's why I create. And I think we've all similar mindsets. We've got that sort of creative spark, and people need to see that. People need to see that journey, and we need to celebrate our successes and learn from our, defeats and all as well. That's all part of life, and sometimes that ends up in the medium that we use, not just writing, but anything you try. As long as we keep telling these stories, and the stories behind the stories, I think we'll be okay. Because yes, there's a majority of people out there are just fickle. They're herd like they're numb and they go along, but that's not the people we're going to reach anyway.
People who create AI books are not writers. They don't want to be writers. They're not writing. They're publishers or producers, and that's what they want to do. They want to publish something. They want to sell it. They don't want to write anything. So when you see all this, well, you can write a book or this or that, that's a deflection, or it's just playing with language. It's like, I want to say Manor Books, which was a sleazy publishing house in the 70s. They were I think they were I'm not going to answer them. You know what? I'm not going to say anymore. But Manor would put anything out there, just put anything out there, and junk. Manor put out some of the worst books you could imagine, but they sold because they had those sleazy covers on them. And nobody running Manor was concerned about quality. It's although those books go for $800-900 today, they're collected because everybody collects them. But AI, if you're putting AI out, you're looking to make a buck, and you're just trying to make a quick buck by flooding the market. And a lot of people just don't. They've never in their life thought about publishing anything, so they think they can print out 45 books a month and do this and that. Well, yeah, okay, go for it. See how far you get without marketing it. See how far you can get without advertising it. It's just gonna list. It's not gonna move.
But it's.
I
think in this,
you're opening
you
yourself.
You need a following. I think you need to garner a personal following. It's okay being part of collectives, but you need people that actually resonate with you. And that's where you need your personality. That's where you need to have a personality and put it out there. And like I said, I want to be part of the solution, not the problem. That's kind of why I stepped up to do this. I want to, I've heard so many stories. There's folks who have come on the show just, past my, a lot of you came back, which is fantastic. But, in the conversation, they've always talked about barriers and problems of the way, and how to get over these hurdles. And I've taken that on board over the years, and that's why I decided to throw my hat in the ring as a publisher, because I want to it's not even about, I don't expect to make money of this realistically. For if it can pay for itself in a year's time, that it's self-sustaining, I'll be happy. But I just want to provide another avenue out there to give people a voice, you know, and get
Yeah.
stories out there, real stories. And then I want to use this, the channel that you can say, actually, do you know what? It's not AI generated. Here's the humans behind it. Here's their experiences, stories. Here's what they enjoy. Here's what they don't enjoy. Here's what might have lent them towards that particular tale at that time. You know, just those little nuances, which AI will never replicate.
No.
I can get as advanced as it wants, but it'll never. And that's been the eternal conversation, hasn't it, between mechanical beings and humanity? You know what I mean? We've had it from clockwork beings, you know, coming to life, and golems, like some of the earliest stories.
Yeah.
They're not human. They can look human. They can replicate human behavior, but they're in the back of your mind. You know it's not real. The Matrix movie is a perfect example of that. You know, everyone having that little itch in the back of their head that, oh, this is all perfection. It's not real, because that's not who we are as people.
Well, I don't know. I think they've been turning the settings down on the Matrix every year for the past couple of years. Because things are just
the
getting more
sequels
and
did
more
that. This
miserable,
kind of
you know.
beat us over the head.
No. As they said, the original Matrix was perfect. Everyone was perfectly happy. They made it easy for everyone. So instead, they just turned the settings down, and everyone got miserable.
Yeah.
I'm beginning to wonder.
Yeah, definitely.
Just what happened 2020? No, it can't get any worse. 21.
Well, as bad as it could be, AI could develop into like the perfect storyteller, but there will always be storytellers and stories to tell because it's part of the human condition. It's built into us to pass on our knowledge and to learn it, and not to get mystical about it, because you know that's kind of what we do. But that's, you know, at the core, the seed of everything is why a lot of people choose to write. It's not to make a fortune, because only the most deluded of us or the insanely lucky manage that, you know. It's to tell the stories that we love to tell, to impart the knowledge, to build a legacy and something worthwhile, to leave a mark and say, you know, I was here, I did something, you know.
I think AI is going to really fiction market. You know, you can't change. Like it doesn't. They can make 9 million AI books. I could care less. You know, I mean, it's not going to make me stop. And I don't think it would hurt it would hurt the market. You know, if you write a good book, people are going to buy it. But I was on, I go on the stock market app and I look, and because you get these articles from Market Watch and whomever. And I started noticing that the byline was generated by AI. And I said, oh boy, the nonfiction market's going to get zapped. You are really going to get that. You're going to get zapped. It's a lot easier now. 99% of what I've written is nonfiction. I mean, I've written maybe, ghost written, God knows how many blog articles, well over 30, 40, 50,000. That can be replaced overnight. And the only reason I still get some of that work is the copyright issue, because I personally, because you can't, if I write it and I transfer the copyright to somebody else, there's no legal issue. If it's just AI, you can tweak it and edit it and call it a derivative copyright, but you can't make a derivative copyright of something that was originally copyrighted. It has to be public domain. So, so some folks, they're going to need original nonfiction work, but for a lot of stuff, you can't copyright facts. So if you ask for an article that's mostly filled with facts, none of that's copy. George Washington was the first president. That's it. Nobody, no matter what they write, can stake a claim on that as a copyright. So what'll happen is you can ask for a generic news article and then turn around and just edit it, and there's nothing in there that's going to, in my opinion, I'm not an attorney, it's not legal advice, but it's if you just spit out a bunch of facts and you tweak and edit it, these services, or news services just publish it, and it reduces or eliminates the it eliminates the need for a lot of writers for some basic stuff. Like if you want to report on what stocks went up and down, you can just say, "Hey, do this." And, you don't need a finance writer to do it for you. So that I think nonfiction will get hit a lot harder.
Yeah, well, like my career as a data analyst, that lot of AI stuff where I do, because I used to manually go in, when you're transferring legacy data from a old system to a new system, the AI's got better, that there's less need for me. Still need that human touch, but you don't need as many. You don't need a team of 5 anymore. You just need one person at the end of it just to verify. And even then, they're using a lot of AI tools to run through it. So yeah, I can see it. But anyway, we're here to be positive. We're not here to be doom and gloom. I just think with creativity, you need that human touch, and as long as we keep the human touch, that's where we'll survive. I think that's what it's all about. We just don't give up. Is basically what I'm saying. That's the worst thing you can do. You give up, then you have no chance.
Yeah.
As long as you're still trying, then you're in with a shot.
Exactly.
But yeah, I thought each one of these volumes is going to have its own theme. So obviously, I thought the first one, Hauntings, would be an interesting one. It's the official policy of this channel that ghosts are stupid. So I thought I would explore that. Because every time I've watched a haunting movie of some sort, the ghosts are always dumb. Like, just, what are you saying? Say it again. Like, right, use Morse code or something. You know what I mean? Communicate. You're going to all this trouble. A lot of haunting movies are like, but I'd still, with that, I like the idea of piercing the veil between the living and the dead. I like the idea of past events coming forward. Something so egregious happened that the person can't transfer over to the other side, whatever that means to people, and there's always unresolved issues. So that's what interests me, about the idea of the paranormal and hauntings and ghosts and spirits, and even not from a supernatural aspect, but the idea of residual energy. I love that sort of concept, that somebody can have such a strong presence in the world that their energy stays behind after them. There's loads of places you can take it. What was sort of your ideas when I put the idea out first in, right? Okay, hauntings, that's the theme. Here's sort of a brief synopsis. I wanted to keep it as loose as possible because, like I said, there's so many directions to go. What's sort of your takes? Anyone just want to jump in with this one? Or
I think you chose really well with Hauntings for your first anthology, because it's really broad. There's lots of things you can do with Hauntings. But what I like about it is it's a light way to start off, because I can see that hopefully your anthologies are going to get a bit more demonic sort of possessions.
Different titles that are very much, there's a few dark ones.
That's right. Different
things. Me,
yes,
I want to go there. I always do. But I thought I would start off, give people a chance to.
That's what I would thought you did. Yeah. Great move. That was a great move. Yeah. Yeah. And so I decided to write about a haunting and a haunted cabin, and there's some issues going on there's dynamics in there, like relationships and family dynamics, as well as haunted cabin in the woods. So it's just a normal sort of haunting.
You didn't go Evil Dead, really, so that's one thing. You could have easily fallen into the trap of going Evil Dead, but you didn't. So that was cool.
No, because I thought I'd start light.
And go, oh, that's such and such.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no. So that was my experience with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would also say that as soon as I saw the call, it really spoke to me, because just growing up, like, my favorite horror-esque stories were the ones with ghosts and demons and other kind of spirits and things like that. And I was always fascinated by, like, reincarnation and past life situations, and so I decided to explore that in mine, which is a little bit of an interesting take, because I'm not going to spoil the story, but the haunting aspect of the story and the ghost figure in the story isn't evil or demonic in any way. They're actually a good spirit. But the story is very dark, and so I thought it was really fun to play around with the idea of this very dark suspenseful thriller-esque story, but the spirit and the haunting aspect in the story is actually to try to help the protagonist instead of hurt them. And so that was fun for me to play around with.
Yeah, I got a bit of the Lovely Bones sort of flavor of yours. That's what I was thinking of. Just if you're familiar with that story.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Rosalia.
Yes.
Yeah. No, but have you read the Lovely Bones?
Mm-hmm.
No,
I've not read it, but I know it. I know the story.
No, Demi's. I just thought it's very a lot of parallels I can draw, and I absolutely love that story, the Lovely Bones. And obviously Peter Jackson did the movie, which was great as well. And yeah, it's sort of, you can see the two worlds. The darkness and the vileness of what happened, with a bit of positivity. And yeah, I just saw draw. That's what I loved about that movie and that story. And then when I read Rosalia, that was the same thing. I was sort of getting that same vibe, but I can see where you're taking it a different direction as well. So it wasn't a carbon copy, that's what I said, but I can see the inspiration if you've seen those. Is good.
Well, I was, for me with Hauntings, it's not specifically a spirit or a demon or something else or anything else. It's the resonance of what once existed in this world. And that's the idea. It's the whole, you call it a haunting. Is it a haunting or is it an echo?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. It could be the energy of a person. Somebody has such a strong presence that their energy remains even after they're physically gone.
And that was the thought behind mine, was the idea that actually it's not just that you're gone, it's that whatever you are remains. And when, as they always said, you're only gone when the last person who knew what you did, who appreciated what you did, is also gone, then you are gone. But until then, you remain, and you will always remain in that way. So for me, that was more interesting to explore that concept than anything else, because you look at things like film stars and people like that, and you're like, well, yep, okay, some of them are dead. But if I say Leonard Nimoy, you know who I'm
short. Did you see that short that came out last year?
Yeah. It was very well done. I wasn't too sure about the uncanny valley on Shatner. Because there was a little bit of a moment of that's clearly not Will Shatner, but that's okay. That's all right. It's okay. Let it go. Let it go. It's still a good piece, and I like the fact that they did it. I still think that if they found a way to include voice at some point in time, that would have been better. I don't know. It's. I'm back to the whole AI generated. It's a little bit uncanny valley. I'm like, yep, I get where they were going with it. I thought it was really well done, but at the same time, it was a little bit unnatural.
You could definitely, even though William Shatner was actually physically involved in that.
Yeah.
You can still see, like I said, your brain knows.
But still, there's that moment of that's not Bill Shatner.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yes, that
you
was
took yours. Like you left the planet. Yours. You went
and
the
came back changed completely. Because when he landed, he was like, "Oh my god, I'd never realized this is just one planet, and we're all on this one planet." And suddenly turned into a hippie. Literally, all it took was a 6-minute space journey, and he turned into a hippie by the time he landed, which I thought was brilliant. That whole moment of all the things your captain has been espousing for all these years, and you figured it out in 6 minutes by going like that. And I'm like, perfect. There you go. Send everyone to space for 5 minutes. Everyone comes down a hippie. Done. No problem at all. The world's better. All you got to do is find a way
even
to
a little smellier. No, another thing you touched on as well was, you leave energy behind, but what happens if something's collecting it? Obviously, not getting spoilers away, but there's that element brought in, which I liked. There's other forces that are aware of forces, and what can you use those forces for? Is all that into playing?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And
I don't.
I didn't get 10 haunted house stories. That's what I really appreciated of it. Like everyone brought something different to the table.
Thank God.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot you can do with ghosts and haunting. Yeah. It's pretty vast.
Tell Blumhouse.
It's like whenever I hear
I love Blumhouse.
Whenever I hear hauntings or ghosts, there's two things that pop into my head. Um, Again, I'm going to go back to the 70s, and very much you had to be there. Um, Amityville Horror. People today, they watch the movie. The movie came after the book, and in those days, paranormal was taken very seriously by a segment of the population. Um, the people who didn't buy into it or didn't believe it, still they were entertained by the books. And you had a lot of well, you had a lot of insert. You have UFOs, Bigfoot, ghosts, hauntings, possession, this, that, and the other thing. And it was sold as being very credible, even though mostly all of these things were exposed as hoaxes, because you can get it, again, it meant money. There was a lot of there was a niche market for this paranormal speculative stuff back then. It's like, like part of the reason why the whole Bigfoot craze went crazy was if you lived in New Jersey, you had no idea what's going on in Oregon. It might take you 3 weeks to find out what's going on back then. So when they say, oh, there's something could be hiding in the woods, or there could be a ghost, or there could be a this, or there's a that, not to say people believed it or were quick to believe it, but there was a segment that was really, but I say there was interest in it. So whether you could be, I don't believe in any of this, but you would still you were entertained by it, or you were intrigued by it. So there was that kind of 70s. This is, in other words, it was presented as real. Like when you watch something, there was no, do ghosts exist? No, it exists. This is what happened, and prove me wrong. That was the very 70s approach to it. And the other wing, which is way on the other side of the spectrum, or almost completely, has nothing to do with that element. But anytime I hear about ghosts, or I hear about hauntings, or this or that, the first thing that pops into my mind is the old DC Comics ghosts, which was DC Comics' best horror anthology. It wasn't necessarily their bestseller. House of Mystery was, and I think maybe House of Secrets might have been their number 2, but Ghost was really successful, and Ghost was far superior to their top sellers, because their top sellers were juvenile. They were written for really little kids. The second, third, and fourth tier DC Comics horror books were a little bit older audience, and Ghost was really scary, and they had some great stories in there. So I kind of I guess I kind of drew from that. But little secret, a lot of my horror stories are not horror stories. They're actually crime stories. And that's an EC Comics approach, because back in the 1950s, EC came out, like, they had Tales from the Crypt, Vault of Horror, and all that stuff. But they also had a book called Crime Suspense Stories. And crime books were very popular in the 50s, but they sucked. They were just the same thing. They were just the same thing over and over again. Guy robs a bank, and then at the end of the story, he gets arrested.
Don't hold back. Just tell us what you feel.
Yeah, they were boring. They were just there was not. So EC Comics, when they did it and they wanted to get into the market, they said, you know what, we're going to do this like Alfred Hitchcock Presents. And we're not going to do the generic guy commits a crime and he either meets his demise or he gets arrested. We're going to infuse a lot of horror into this, and we're going to tell a crime story like a horror story. And in my opinion, Crime Suspense Stories was one of the absolute best horror comics of the 50s. I don't want to say it was better than Tales from the Crypt, because the same people were writing, both same people were writing and drawing in both books. So you were getting the same authors, but you weren't going to get a werewolf in Crime Suspense Stories. You were going to get,
No, but you not think, though, if you give someone they could do the same thing, like it's their run of the mill sort of, okay, this is my comfort zone. But if you give someone a chance to stretch themselves, a lot of people will raise that challenge, and then they produce maybe something spectacular that they never thought they were capable of, just by giving that little tweak.
Back in the 50s, what happened was you could get issue 2 of something, and you might never read. You might not be able to read that same book again until it popped up in the drugstore. And if the distributor didn't send it, you weren't buying it every month. So they could crank the same material over, recycle the same stories, and also their audience was kids. They were going to read for 2 years and stop. They were going to move on to something else. So they would keep doing the same thing because their audience was their
Sort of
audience.
rotating through, not hanging about.
Yeah, their audience would be a new audience in 2 years, so they would recycle. But EC did not do that. EC had consistent readers because of the quality. They had more subscribers. They had more. They actually had fans. Like they had EC fan clubs and all that stuff. So they were able to do better far better stories than what was common. Back in the day, like there was Eerie Publications, not the Warren book. Not the Warren book, Eerie. That was really cool, but that was the 60s magazine. Eerie Publications, just generic junk. And what they would do is they would slap this really violent cover on it, and people would buy the book because they see it really violent. And then you get, crappy stories written for 9-year-old that really should not have. No 9-year-old ever should have got their hands on. Should have been in the adult section.
I went the other route. I had a nice safe cover and then a lot of dark stories inside. It's like, surprise!
Yeah.
That works though.
I like to surprise people. It's like, think they're coming in for a nice safe time. It's like, nah.
No, it's so funny. I mean, if you think about like fairy tales as well, like when I love fairy tale reimaginings, and I do them a lot with like a darker twist. And like my parents read me like Little Red Riding Hood and like Hansel and Gretel and stuff when I was little. And then when I was doing research on these stories and like reading the original, it's just like, yeah, I'm not surprised. Like the books that my parents read me were like versions of them, because the original fairy tales are like so dark.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we talked about that before.
Yep, the Grimm brothers, Hans Christian Andersen.
Christian Andersen and
they
Brothers
stole
Grimm.
all those stories.
Yeah.
What was it? Didn't Hans? Wasn't he wrote Oliver Twist? Was the Hans Christian?
Sure.
No, that was Charles Dickens, wasn't it?
Charles Dickens.
No.
Yeah, that's Dickens.
Yeah.
Sorry, Charles
Yeah,
Dickens.
Dickens.
Those were the three
He actually
best.
wrote a sequel.
Mark
I remember rightly.
Twain.
And that was like super
Mark
dark.
Twain, isn't it?
Oliver Twist?
It's-
No, I think that's
Yeah.
Dickens.
No, Mark Twain.
Yeah,
Oliver
Dickens.
Twist was Dickens. Yeah.
That was Charles Dickens. Yeah, sorry. I was mixed up. But it actually wrote a
Oh, was
sequel
it?
to Oliver Twist, and it was even darker. Like there were some strange characters afterwards. God, I can't remember. Did they try and make a series of it? And they stopped. I'm talking about like late 80s here when they done that. But
No, but I mean,
manuscripts of a sequel to Oliver Twist. Just carrying on. How did he go on with his life? And he just introduced some like strange. Remember this woman in the house with cobwebs everywhere and stuff, and just
and that's the thing, though. I mean, sometimes people do variants on things that would. I mean, just talking about this just now reminded me. There's I've got the game here. It's something that came out a while back, but they did something called Broken Tales, and it's a role-playing game. But it goes on the idea that there was a story behind the actual story. So, for example, you've got the Three Little Pigs, right?
Yeah.
Except what if it was the gang of three pigs?
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
And you've got Beauty and the Beast. Well, what if it was Beauty and her Beast?
Yeah.
Completely different thing.
Good.
You've taken the same idea, but you've gone in a different direction, and they've just gone
Yeah.
with all these different things here. And these are just the ones I've just picked up from the shelf.
Yeah.
But it's all classical fairy tales reimagined with the whole. And what if it was this, not this?
Yeah.
And
I'm
those
all
classic
over
tales are
fairy
based
tales.
on those things. Simple stuff. But
You have to be very. You have to be very careful when it comes to
The Disney ones.
retelling Grimm Brothers, Disney, all that sort of stuff, because you've got to do a lot of research goes into it. You've got to, you got to nail it basically, otherwise it'll just fall apart. But yeah, it's really interesting how it's gone from children's stories to horrors to children's stories again, then we're back to horrors again, and it's like Winnie the Pooh and Piglet or whatever the heck. Who else is there? All these Pinocchio horrors, and yeah, it's just
the whole slate of them, and they're doing Mary
they've just
Poppins.
run out of creativity.
The Pooniverse.
Yeah.
They're
It's
including Mary
ridiculous,
Poppins at the end of this year.
Yeah.
Oh, look, come on! They're redoing The Running Man this year. Don't get me started on remakes. Just no.
I think there's a difference between a straight remake and what you're saying, John. There's a difference between taking an idea and tweaking it and going, well, what if? Or like Tony was saying, you can take a normal crime story, but what happens if you add that little sprinkling of horror and it goes into the other realm or somewhere else? That's completely different. Right, okay, we're out of ideas. Let's just do this again.
Yeah, a little bit like subtle cross genre.
Yeah,
like when you watch like Alfred Hitchcock Presents, those are suspense and crime stories.
Through a glass darkly. Yeah.
But they're crime and suspense stories. But he uses horror. Well, he didn't. I mean, he didn't direct them or write them. He was hosting and producing. But the general, you saw pacing and you saw elements that would be more common in a horror story, and that kind of made the crime stories more gripping, and what made them really great was they were not, nobody was jumping on the roof of a car. These were very, very realistic crime stories, and some of the best TV that came out at that time. So you could get that little subtle touch to it that kind of moves it into a different direction, makes it a little bit more compelling.
Did anyone see Penny Dreadful when it was on?
Oh yes,
it was great. I loved it. But I loved the first 2 seasons, and then they
third season dropped off a wee bit. But it was the bit at the end where they reveal who the Wolfman is.
Yeah, that was great.
And you suddenly pause and went, I did not see that coming. And I love it when that happens. There's just that wonderful moment of,
you got me. Yes, you got me.
I
love it.
I loved it. I thought it was great, but it didn't catch me by surprise. Well, it caught me by surprise, and then there was a delayed reaction, and I said, "Beast of the Yellow Night." You took that from Beast of the Yellow Night, which was
but Tony, you're a human database. You're not exactly normal.
Beast of the Yellow Night. Beast has of the Yellow. But he's not really.
And let's be honest, when you watched Penny Dreadful the first time around, you thought the monster was the first one that you saw. You did not expect what happened at the end of episode 1. Because everyone suddenly sat there and went, woo! No, that's not right. But it was. And it was so well done. And so, no spoilers, because I'm not spoiling any of that for anybody.
No, you got to check that out.
Go see it. It's bloody worth it. Even if you watch only the first episode, just those last 10 seconds of the first episode are worth buying the box set. Yeah, it's that good.
Penny Dreadful.
Don't tell him. Don't tell him. I see that.
I loved it. I thought the first season was awesome. I thought the second season was awesome.
Superb.
And when they were in production for the third season, Penny Dreadful was supposed to be 5 seasons. And they were filming with the assumption they were going to go 5 seasons. They got about halfway through, and Showtime said, "Look, we're canceling this. Wrap it up." So they're like, "We got you. What?" And they're like, "Wrap it up." And you could see that at the end that they rushed it, and it was a shame because you could also see that there was a lot. They were building for a lot more, and then it's like end it. And that was really, really, really. Oh, they should go to jail for that. I mean, that was really, really. Really mean. That just was mean. It was such a great series. But the ratings just weren't there. That's unfortunate.
Probably because people were confused, because it wasn't your generic, especially with TV. TV is so difficult. I'm not a fan of TV, but most of it's just so generic. So the minute you do get something different or out there, the general audience just can't cope. Like, I'm confused.
It's the reason why they cancelled the Halo TV series, which was brilliant. Just as every bit as good as the Halo canon, every bit as good.
I'm not sure that's a popular opinion, John.
Be not come at me. I don't care. Yeah.
I've not watched it, so I can't comment.
But
It took them 2 full
I'm
seasons.
pretty
to
sure
put
the
Halo on the
majority of
screen.
people would say it's far off
Hang on,
canon.
TV's trying to talk.
It took them 2 full seasons to put a Halo on the screen. Like, it had almost nothing to do with the original video games. Yeah, they expanded the world a lot, but if you're a fan of the video games, I don't see like the value of the first 2 seasons.
As an
action sci-fi show, it was okay, but like I don't see how it relates to the game.
I don't think it relates to the game, but I think as an in-universe thing of the way that it could have gone, I think it was actually better in many ways than the storyline that was presented. Especially when they started getting to the bits with the flood and everything else, and you suddenly went, that.
I enjoyed it as a sci-fi. I did not enjoy it as a Halo thing.
Yeah. I think your views have just rocketed anyway, Colin.
Everyone's I've seen the chat now going, that agrees with you anyway.
Comments on fire. Yeah.
Or is he agreeing or is he being sarcastic? I can't tell.
He's not being sarcastic. It's correct.
Brett wouldn't be sarcastic at all.
I want to circle back a little. I got to talk about Beast of the Yellow Night. That was made in the Philippines, and they tried to make money with war films, but they couldn't export them. So they were told, look, we'll get you into the U.S. market, but nobody wants to see World War II films. You got to give me a horror movie. So they started making horror movies, and they did very well, like Mad Doctor, Blood Island, Beast of Blood. When they did, but they had access to military stuff. So when they did Beast of the Yellow Night, which the guy sells his soul to the devil, becomes a werewolf, and because they could get military stuff, they threw in a bunch of silly scenes where the werewolves run around and they're shooting artillery at them, and there's no silver in mortar, there's no silver in artilleries. Tanks don't have silver in their whatever shoots out of them. So everything it's blowing up all around him, and he doesn't care. These bombs going off, and he's like, "Yeah, whatever, man. I could care less." But I'm like saying to myself, some people, man, it's just I don't know. What were you thinking? But it has the best scene. I think one of the best scenes ever, where he goes to a massage parlor with a prostitute, and the way they shot it, you can see her massage. You can't see him, but you can see her moving her hands back. She's doing a massage, and then all of a sudden, like he's not off camera, and then his head rises up, and he turns toward the massage, and it's like, whoa, that's pretty whacked. But that's one
rubbing the belly.
That's just whacked. Yeah. Strange movie.
I just don't think I've seen that one. I'm not familiar with the Philippines. Obviously, a lot of South Korean horror I love. A lot of J horror. Taiwan, I thought, was on the roll with the Sadness, and then I saw some of the other products. And I'm like, nah, that was a one-hit wonder. But it's interesting when people try to do horror, or they're told to do horror. You see it with Hollywood as well. Like a lot of, I'll do a horror movie now because it's easy, and they don't get it, and it falls flat on its face. And I think you need to understand the genre. It's you need to embrace. You need to be a fan. I think to be a horror creator. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you need to be a horror fan. Like you can't be one without the other.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's because like when you do horror, there's like a very strong emotion to it. Like when you're portraying that through the character, the fear, the dread, and all of that. And so I think you need to read it and like it and understand it and be able to put yourself in the character's point of view in order to write their story. So I definitely don't think anyone could just write horror.
No, and a lot of it is knowing that you have to have a story other than just the horror. There has to be something compelling over and above the bit that's making you nervous.
Right.
And a lot of people forget that you can't just go, at the screen and have people go, "Oh, that's scary." It doesn't work that way. Quiet Place, a couple of years ago, completely out of left field. Fantastic film, almost no sound in it at all. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And you didn't think about it as a horror film because it was actually a survival film about a family. There was horror in it. There's a lot of horror in it, but you didn't realize it was a horror film until you got to the end of it and suddenly realized, Jesus, I've been on edge the whole film. Absolutely on edge the entire film. And isn't that glorious? Not once was I sitting there going, no, that's not good. A friend of mine just asked for recommendations for horror films from 2024, and I have to say Alien Romulus. Now, don't get me wrong, it had a whole bunch of things wrong with it. Yeah, come on, Colin, come at me.
We only spent 4 hours talking about it. We didn't really go in depth at all, you know what I mean? We only glossed over it.
But it worked as a film. It worked as an Alien film. It worked on a number of levels, a variety of other stuff. But again, you didn't realize you were on edge until you got to the end of the film and suddenly went, right, there we go. And we're good. You know, and then that's the thing. So,
I think there's like two things you really need to do if you're a horror writer. You have to love horror, you have to know horror, and you have to read horror. You have to read it. What was that?
Yeah.
What was that, Colin Martin?
Just with regards to Alien Romulus.
Jack Skellington, Ridley Scott, by the looks of it.
Oh,
well, it's a voodoo doll, which is going to have
gorgeous.
Ridley Scott's head on it by next week. I'm going to get into time and get it printed off. And pins in it, and it's going to be in a noose.
Oh my God.
So we're guessing you didn't like it then, you know?
I hate Ridley Scott, he's a twat. He's an
again, don't hold back, just tell us what you feel. You know,
no, just Romulus, you can just tell his handprints were all over it, just with his ego. He couldn't. Don't forget about my Prometheus.
Well, Prometheus wasn't an alien film, though, was it?
I like Romulus. It was like a teen slasher in space.
Yeah. Exactly so.
Yeah.
All the dumb tropes, all the silly stuff. What happened? Well, at least one group had sex, therefore they must die. There we go. Done. Could have been written in the 1980s and it wouldn't have been any different.
Yeah. Well, I think he got it half right. I think, I don't know, controversially, I believe to write horror, I don't think you necessarily need to have read it, because I think there's something innately relatable. So long as you're willing to put yourself in a position where you're going to write about kind of what scares you, or be willing to go down that rabbit hole. I think there's everybody's got the capacity to do it, but very few people can do it right, because they'll not do it, take that depth of it, if you know what I mean.
Oh, I'm sorry, I have to disagree with you there. I seriously think if you want to write horror, you have to read it. Otherwise, you can't get the elements right. You know how to build up the suspense. You know how to deliver the imagery and all that sort of stuff. And if you don't read horror, you don't get to see how they've drawn it out, or how they've put a hook right at the beginning, or how they've introduced true crime issues, or it needs a dilemma, they need conflict, all that sort of stuff. And if you don't read, how are you going to learn those aspects? You could go and do a creative writing course, of course, but reading is the only way, I think. Just like we watch films.
In a roundabout way, I kind of relent, and I would agree with you totally. But I think that horror transcends genre. I think there can be horror in every genre.
You're right.
Yeah,
just like romance. There could be romance in every genre. So, you're right. Yeah. But I think that's true of writing fiction. I don't think it's necessarily, specific to horror. So you're right. Yes.
It depends what your genre is. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. I'd say that point.
Yeah.
No,
I don't read horror.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that you just mentioned that I love is the idea of the imagery and the way you actually write. I think that's huge, because we use metaphors in a certain way. We paint a picture in a certain way. But the prose itself can evoke this sense of dread and atmosphere. Because I think a lot of times in horror, the setting is often like a character itself. And I think there are certain craft elements that you need to immerse yourself into by reading horror by successful authors and just by anyone really, to kind of get a grasp on how are they doing characterization, how are they doing setting, how are they establishing atmosphere. Because I think the root of, like what we're scared of in our real lives and pulling from that, I think, like we were talking about earlier, we need that human connection, that human experience. But in order to actually translate that through words on the page, I think there needs to be an understanding of how are the fiction craft elements utilized when you're trying to write a horror story.
Yeah.
I don't read horror and I write horror. I also mostly avoid horror movies. But I can write what's terrifying. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what's your
I read some Stephen King as a kid. I didn't really ever get into it. Yeah, no, I don't like him particularly.
I can't stand him.
I read some
don't
Dean
like him.
Koontz, the Odd Thomas books. I read stuff
Love
like
Dean
that,
Koontz.
but I haven't read any of that in 25 years. I read sci-fi and magical realism.
Yep.
Way back when, back in the 80s, which was the tail end of the paperback from hell. If you read Grady Hendrix's book about the horror, the big horror, the pulp horror boom of the 70s, and then the death of it in the late 80s. There was a billion trillion short story collections that came out, but over those years. But man, in the 80s, wow, you had the Hot Blood series come out, which was 5 stars. That was fantastic. Shock Rock, which was a collection. I mean, you were getting these really cool collections of short stories with neat themes. Like Shock Rock was rock and roll and horror, which was that's just a brilliant. That's brilliant, and that was really, really, really good. And Hot Blood was erotic horror. That really good. See, that was like Jeff Gelb and all these guys. But also Martin Greenberg actually had been around for 30, 40 years. Martin H. Greenberg. There was poet and then there was the editor, writer. Martin H. Greenberg was the editor, and he would come up with these really cool themed anthologies and short story collections. And I remember when Bram Stoker's Dracula came out, he came out with a collection called Dracula, Prince of Darkness, which I wonder where he got that title from. And it was a collection of right about Dracula and good stuff. I mean, and he also came out with a book that I didn't read, but I really, really would like to read. It was a short story collection based on A Christmas Carol. So it was the ghosts from A Christmas Carol.
Oh, so good.
Oh, how they became ghosts, or
no, just other people. Like they didn't just do a one and done with Scrooge. They bounce around all over the place, and it was.
Different visits. So basically the same scenario, but right.
That's cool. But I never read it because you know what? You can't read that other than Christmas time. So if you don't buy it for that Christmas window, I don't want to read that in July. So if it skips my mind, I got to wait till next year. And it's been 30 years. Every year it skips.
Calendar reminder.
I just remembered it now, January. I'm like, oh man, I got to wait another year. But, I mean, those were really, really, really good. I'm not an extreme horror fan because a lot of it's like meh, but there was I don't like. See, the thing with it is you read their names, but you never hear them pronounced, so I'll probably screw the name up. Like David, David Scal and people like that. They came out with some of the first. I don't want to say. I mean, they were extreme horror started. In the late.
I think that's such a cheesy label.
It started in the late 19th century, so it's they kind of people pretend it's a modern thing. That's baloney. That's complete baloney. It's been around 100 years. I started, noticing that some of that stuff's actually better than you'd think. If they know when to pull back, it's not that bad. If they just keep doing it like a train wreck, then it's awful. You numb your audience with too much of it. Like Manor Books would put out some of the most violent stuff, but by page 30, you're like, okay, like now it's boring.
But I mean, that then begs the question, doesn't it? Is horror less popular than it was because the world in general has become desensitized to the notion of it? Yeah, Alien in 1979 was an X-rated film. Yeah, I went to see an original print of it, and it's an X-rated. I'm like, fantastic. I've actually seen an X-rated film in my life. Marvelous. However, you look at Aliens versus Predator some 20 years later. Yeah, I know, we're not going to talk of Aliens versus Predator. However,
sorry,
it was a 12. Somebody somewhere thought, 12-year-olds can watch that. There was still a chestburster scene. There's still aliens melting people's faces off. There's still a variety of other stuff in there. Because people have become desensitized to the notion of what's actually horrific. The Poltergeist, the bit where he pulls his face up in the mirror. And you're like, that was
like Lord of the Rings, right? Should be a horror, Colin?
Yeah, Marshall's
not a bloody fantasy. Yeah.
Well, Alien was a horror movie in outer space. Aliens is now you're doing an action movie.
It's a war film.
Yeah, basically, yeah. And when you get to Aliens versus Predator, you're getting
Alien is haunted house in space.
Yeah, you're getting an action movie, so you're kind of it's not. You got to keep consistency with the chest bursting, but you're not in a horror movie anymore. You're in an action movie. So it just changes the psychology. It changes everything. So it's not as horrifying because Alien when the chest burster scene happens, you're wondering, my God, what else is going to happen? In Alien versus Predator, that it's just going to be a bunch of shootouts and.
But isn't that the point though? 20 years ago, prior to that, you wouldn't have known. And when you look at all the test screenings for Alien, when they're all running out, throwing up in the audience and everything else, that's because they've never seen anything like that. And now it's, seen it.
I agree.
Seen it.
There is a decent
seen it lampooned in Spaceballs.
I know.
Yeah.
Steve,
I think
by the way, Rob Zombie rocks.
I had to give up when the Monsters remake.
It's not movie making. No opinion.
At least he's not Glenn Danzig. There's always a positive to think of.
He's
at least
not.
He's not Glenn Danzig.
Yeah.
So,
I met Rob Zombie at the screening in Hollywood for Devil's Rejects, and I spoke to him, and I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, as a great person, a great human being, he gets a 23. He's the nicest guy on the planet.
Oh yeah, and he's a fan, isn't he? He's a fan of the genre, which is very cool.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Nice guy. I mean, really cool guy. I mean,
wow, that's fabulous.
Yeah, I mean, and he signed every autograph, and there was he didn't leave until he signed every autograph. I mean, just a great guy. So he can make as many bad movies as he wants.
I think with the proper Rob Zombie
Down
he's always looking after his friends.
Yeah, he uses the same.
So he's always looking after his friends, and that's kind of he's not. I think he's just making pet projects. But even with the Halloween remake, at least he's not David Gordon Green.
Remake.
Give him that.
Yeah.
That guy.
That's the only reason you came on here was to spite me. Hey, Steve. You're suddenly here all of a sudden. I thought you were busy.
Yeah, no, we went.
He rushed back just to come and annoy you, Dale.
Went out for a meal. It's just heavy snow. Heavy snow down here. So yeah,
that sucks. All right.
It's all right though.
Oh well. It's summer here.
So what's happened?
We're all about to start fighting with each other. We're all starting the great Rob Zombie debate, and alien Romulus. So we're all like at each other's throats. It started off as a friendly stream. Now it's just descended into chaos. We're like, I hate you now.
Yeah.
Just the way it should be. Proper podcasting.
I love his music. Music's brilliant.
It is, isn't it?
He's
music.
he's an interesting. One
Yeah.
thing, at least you'll say about Rob Zombie, he'll not be forgotten. He's one of them sort of
No,
characters,
he
and
won't be.
but then again, I'd
Yeah.
rather have
Like
a Rob
Quentin
Zombie
Tarantino.
good or bad project than
I'm trying to think what else. Like,
Oh God, yeah.
that you don't
Yeah,
feel
yeah.
anything. You know,
Yeah.
what
What else
when you
did he
don't
do?
feel anything and you've got
Yeah.
apathy and you're just like, and you, I'll
Yeah.
probably annoy a few people, but I'll bring up the Scream franchise. You know, I didn't even get past the second movie, like watching it live when they came out into the cinema, because you're just, you know, you didn't feel anything. You're just like, okay,
Yeah.
right.
We saw 3 from
Nah.
Hell, and it was me and my friends, and you know we were going to go to the theater in Hollywood. They're like, nope, sold out. Sold out like 5 hours in advance. And so we said, okay, well, we'll go to North Hollywood. You know, actually, no, we were going to go to Universal City, and they're like, nope, sold out. And we got some of the last tickets in North Hollywood. So you go out to North Hollywood, and it's like we got there early, and there was a tiki bar across the street, and somebody came up with a bright idea. Said, hey, let's drink some zombies before we go in. So you know, we were highly impaired during the screening of the movie.
Wasn't Danny Trejo in the first one?
Oh.
Yes.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
well, there's a
cameo.
mad Mexican
It's
city
cameo.
shootout stuff and all. Just went, you know, he just went insane with it. I think he wrote himself into a corner at the end of the second one. It's like, okay, how do I take this? Or, all right, going to do it again. And
They lived. They all got shot with 47 bullets, and they lived. They
just
survived.
walk that off. You're all right.
Same thing in Halloween too. He lived. He survived. He got better. It's
God.
or a little Monty Python.
That is the most awkward scene in that mortuary Halloween 2. Is it with Donald Pleasance and Jamie Lee Curtis? He's lurching about the place and like,
Yeah.
it just made it so awkward.
He's in a hospital in a city where nobody gets sick because the freaking hospital's empty.
Convenience.
Colin, I'm gonna have to take off. My device is dying. I'm gonna have to take off.
Oh,
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank
But
you
I'm
very
gonna
much
have
for
to dip
coming
out
on.
early.
Been a pleasure to meet you, Phoebe.
It was nice to talk to everybody.
And
Everybody
look
have a
forward to
great
hearing from
night.
you again. And of course, at the end of the stream, I'll be posting everybody's links in the comments.
Okay.
So make sure you follow work. By the book, Phoebe's in here. Great story.
Have a great night, everybody.
You too, Phoebe. Thank you very much.
See ya.
And you. See ya.
Oh well.
Did
there's
Stephen?
one end
Did
of
you
it.
put a book? Did you put a story in the book?
Yeah.
You did, didn't you?
No, he just turned up. You know, we'll just.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Of course.
Yeah.
Mine
Yeah,
is
he
secret.
just said gate crash.
The miner's secret.
The miner's secret.
I was going to do
Excellent.
Attack of the Killer Bananas.
Yeah.
Eh.
That
I've
was,
got a
that was another
phobia
danger with this as
against
well.
bananas.
Considering what we've talked about, that you know, there's a danger of just doing the same old thing over and over again. And oh, right, here's another anthology. Here's another horror anthology. Oh, here's another one about spirits and goats. Oh, here we go. You know, that was something I had in the back of my mind as well. You know, putting this together, it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, how do I not do that? And thankfully, he's all, you know, like I said, he's all brought something different. It wasn't 10 haunted house stories of the exact, it wasn't the Conjuring, you know, 10 times, which was fantastic. And each one had a different focus and aspect, and it wasn't the same hero going through the same journey and the same motivations. And I was really happy, you know, I enjoyed reading through them, even though some people accuse me of not.
Yes.
You know, Mr. Knight.
Yeah,
I never.
Yeah, he's a troublemaker. He's a troublemaker, that one.
Did you read my story?
I get terrible troubles every time Microsoft update Windows. It like, oh, I have to redo everything. I tell you.
Oh, they're warning people not to do the update. There's something wrong with an update. So, yeah, be careful.
Well, it came up on the OneDrive that I still had. My manuscript for this short story as one that I had saved, partly done. And I actually had to ask Colin for the finished product. But then when he gave me the finished product,
right.
and then
only
3 days later, in the OneDrive came back the book somehow. So
I never use it.
Technology.
Microsoft.
I'm old
Terrible.
school. I have an HDD plugged in. I've never liked OneDrive. And I use Google Drive and I use
Google
Dropbox. I use
Drive
all
for
sorts of things.
everything.
I subscribe to all of them. I think I used one of them.
But OneDrive just...
Google Drive's good.
Google Docs is my fave.
Hmm?
I use Google Docs.
Yeah, it's handy.
I do everything on Google Docs because if I lose it, at least it's backed up. I mean, I can't really lose it, really.
Bill Gates.
Unless it corrupts. I've had documents corrupt before, not for major things, but it's happened. And so now, like, especially with my novel manuscripts, I always email myself a copy.
Yeah.
Be careful with Grammarly because Grammarly will.
I turn it off. It's nuts.
Yeah, it will.
Yeah,
Your file will disappear.
I've disabled.
That happens. It'll just say we
Grammarly's
can't find it.
crazy.
Yeah. What annoys me, it keeps trying
Yeah, I
to translate
disabled
from
mine.
English into Dumyankistani. That really annoys me.
It makes corrections that are like not correct.
It's
Get
an
rid of
S
it.
goes out, not a
Don't
Z.
use it.
And we use the letter U. Thank you very much. Keep trying to take it out. I was like, no.
Now, my warning with Grammarly is Grammarly is, even though you can save files, it's not for saving files. So you don't trust leaving anything on Grammarly. Move it to some, download it and move it somewhere else.
Yeah.
It could disappear on you.
Yeah, I think we'll all do that. We'll all have like loads of backups to work and get like super paranoid.
I usually have 20 to 30 different versions of the
Terabyte.
same novel that I'm working on.
I always
Yeah.
back up. But
What I like about Google Docs is you can get the version history, so you can go back and see, get an earlier draft, and you don't have to save it as a separate file because it's all right there. You just go on the drop down menu and you can go back.
Yeah, I think I like that from SharePoint.
Microsoft Windows is like a film directed by M. Night Shyamalan, isn't it? It's a crap.
Yeah, we've all become the
I
cubicle.
like
That's the
him
problem.
too.
We've all become the cubicle, and Microsoft, the IT department,
would,
push
though.
updates or Apple. You know what I mean? It's the same. Just push the updates. I'm like, I have everything set the way I want it. Leave me alone. No, we're going to change everything.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Exactly.
especially when you're doing this stuff. Oh my god, I get everything set up and I get my sound right, and then someone will push an update, and then it all goes off kilter, and I just like, I lose my mind for bloody scream, and I record and I think everything's fine, and then it comes out all watery and stuff, and I'm like, oh, you bastards! Drives me up a wall.
Yeah.
I'm the sort of person that if I set something somewhere, I don't want it moved. So if I put something on a particular shelf, that's where I know where it is. And all you have to do to mess up my life is to move that to somewhere else. And that's what the internet does to me and software companies all the time. Just move stuff and change settings. And next thing you know, you got... See when they put the bubble icons in? What was that, about 5 years ago? Everything was like childish bubble icons. Oh, it drove me off. I was never going to give up computers and just live in the woods.
Oh, God.
I'm not 5 years old.
Live in the woods.
Demi, you'll be too young for this, but there's a thing in Microsoft that had the paperclip. And oh my god, that was like bane of your life. Hello, it looks like you're trying to do this. Let me mess with you.
Yeah.
You should live in a village like mine though, where the maximum speed you get on the internet is 13 meg.
I'm not too far off, I'm just far enough outside London to see the bright lights of London and all their like swanky stuff, but I'm also like in the sticks, and it's like
we get the wheel of death when we're
you can't have nice things. Oh dear. Funny enough, that was one of the questions about being desensitized. How then do we work against that? Now I know you guys have all by just taking things a different direction and just bringing a new perspective. But in general, how do we keep people invested in the horror genre?
You don't
You
have
don't.
to.
No, you don't.
They're not.
In
People who
fact,
buy it aren't going
you
anywhere.
You can't. You absolutely can't keep them invested. That's the problem. The problem is behind it is they have to want that.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they don't want it, there's nothing in the world you can do to actually give it to them. And I still think that even though they've renamed it, and sometimes horror is called thrillers and other stuff and everything else, and take your pick, because for a while horror was the least popular title you could possibly have, because people immediately envisioned stuff that came out at the end of the 80s, and nobody wanted that, so they stopped calling it horror. But there's still a market out there for things, grimdark fiction, other things where bad stuff is happening, horrific stuff is happening all the time in those novels. All the time. But it's not called horror. And that's
Horror.
so people then have to go look for those things. But when someone does one that's really good horror, that book will sell colossally well.
Yeah.
Someone else will say, that's horror. And everyone else goes, fantastic, that's horror. And they'll go get it. But it requires that someone says in the first instance, that's horror. So I don't think there's a need to bring it back to the forefront. I think people have already got that need there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, it's like admitting you watched Thundercats in the 80s. It's fine. No problem at all. There's nothing wrong with Thundercats if you liked Thundercats.
Yeah.
However, you've got to be in a community of other people that like watching Thundercats. Otherwise, they're all like, what? You were watching furries before it was furries. It's like...
Yeah, it's lost its market share in the novel side, hasn't it, to epic fantasy? But it seems to have transformed mediums, doesn't it? Because it seems to be reasonably popular in movies, but just
kept the cinema doors open. Like last year alone, it was the horror movies that kept the cinema doors open.
Yeah, I think it is. It's thriving in the cinema, and I think it's still there in the novels, just like John said. It's just not the big slice of pie it used to be in the 80s.
No, it's not at all.
Well, horror really is, Rick Mayers, when he wrote a book about exploitation movies, was called One Week Only, which was how they used to promote a lot of movies in the smaller theaters. They would come in and the movie play for 1 week, because horror, what's happening today is really no different than what it always was. They have a big opening because they get young males, young male audience, big audience comes in, shows up the first weekend, then there's a big drop off, and then the third week, and then it just kind of hangs around. But the budgets are low, so you open big, you're already in profit range, and then everything else is extra. But if you have a really cool movie that catches on, then it'll do far more than normal or average. Like I think, like AIP, they were looking at releases that did $1 million, $2 million, 1.5 million. Then they do Count Yorga does 10 million. So occasionally you'll have this big hit if it catches on, but 10 million, this is $1970. The thing with horror is it's cheap. I'm talking horror movies, but it's cheap. You don't need stunts. You don't need big name actors. You don't need this, that, the other thing. It's you're never going to have. They're doing movies for $10 million. Like Terrifier 3, I think that was I don't even think that was 10 million. So
9 million or something. That was ridiculous.
Yeah,
the most profitable movie of 2024.
There's nothing to spend money on. There's nothing to spend money on in that genre. I mean, other than special effects. But they build. If you do it right, you build to strategically 2, 3, 4 shock scenes, which is the way it used to be done. And Terrifier, it's just the same stuff over and over again. Then you're like, this is boring. It's just too much. It loses its effectiveness when you do too much. That's why Fulci, when he used to do like Gates of Hell, he had like 3 or 4 really shocking scenes and then just 70 minutes of meandering. So if it's going to be cheap, if you dropped off 60% in box office, you're still making money. so it's not going to go anywhere. And other thing with horror, I don't know how credible this is, but you know, allegedly horror movies, because of what you're seeing, what you're going through when you watch it, it releases dopamine, or that's from what I read. And dopamine, you're getting high. Basically, you're getting high on your own neurotransmitters. So if you go in there and you like that sensation, you're just going to keep going back. You know, your brain chemicals respond differently to horror because it's anxiety. Horror has a lot of anxiousness and anxiety and scares and things like that. So if you dig that kind of roller coaster experience, even if you don't like the movie, or you're not even really caring so much about how well the movie's made. You just kind of like that shock effect that it has on your brain pan. So you add those two things together, that genre is not going anywhere. It only disappears when you get external factors or something really, really out of the ordinary. Like horror died in 1945 when they dropped the atomic bomb, because you just that ushered in giant monsters, aliens, and the sci-fi, and then it wasn't really till the 50s, a little bit, House of Wax was a hit here, but then 57 with Hammer and AIP, that they heard, I don't think horror. I kind of wonder what would happen if Hammer didn't exist and AIP didn't exist, because they were the only ones doing horror in the 50s. They even in the 60s. I mean, those two. Nobody else was doing it.
Yeah. Well, Steve and I are going
When
through
it comes
classic horror every other Monday, and it's an interesting journey to revisit all this stuff.
When it comes to like desensitization, I think you can be desensitized, which I think I definitely am desensitized to a lot of things, but you still get a journey when you're watching or reading a horror. When it comes to me, reading's quite it sometimes it's too slow, so I need the visual, direct visual that say films give you. I don't even remember the last good horror book I think the last book I bought was American Psycho. There's just nothing out there, and when it comes to books, it has to be a standout, like a phenomenal book, in order for it to make a dent. And so what I've noticed actually is anthologies are the way to go with horror. People are sick of reading books. People are sick of watching Hollywood franchises bringing the same shit up again. And I think anthologies, as you get, some have 9 authors, some have 100 authors. There's 100 different stories. There's 9 different stories coming in our book or whatever, and I think anthologies is definitely the way to go. Some people don't like me saying that, but I've seen it's working. So, I don't know.
There are so many horror anthologies.
Yeah.
Like, I would say, like, out of all of the submission calls I've seen, so many are horror. Like, they're either like horror or like maybe fantasy or romance.
they've been around.
So many are horror.
Even though
they're coming back again. Yeah.
Colleges are actually the media departments, when they do their projects. I sent Colin a film called Red, White and Blood, and it was done by City College in Plymouth. And part of their project, they made a horror film.
Wow.
Okay, it wasn't crazily very good, but it's still a step that horror is coming in with the younger generation, the sort of 16, 17, 18-year-olds. And they're coming up with these ideas themselves. I have to plug it because my son actually was asked to write the music for it, because he writes music for films. So.
Oh, cool!
That's so cool.
I need to get Gaz on the show at some point.
That's awesome.
He keeps dodging me.
Yeah, he's if there's any filmmakers out there that want scores written, etc., his piece of resistance was there was a Plymouth City promo to plug the city, and he actually done the 15-minute, I think it was, musical score for that, and they used drones and various bits and
Wow.
pieces. And he's also got, because he writes produces his own music because he's a rapper as well.
That's so fun.
And, he also done a video himself, and if you ever get on it, it's called
Wow.
Music to Make Movies To is the album, and it's on all the platforms.
We're
Take a
all
look.
in a few horror filmmakers groups. I'll have to give them a invite over.
Yeah.
Them. There's like
Yes.
loads of the indie horror scene, like not just in general, is
That's
amazing, and it's definitely the least toxic out of when you join a generic writers group, for example, or
Yes.
something else. The nastiness is unreal. Like there's some
Yeah.
proper arseholes. Yes, you still get it. Like I'm not saying horror genre is perfect, but oh my god, it's such a difference when you go into
Yeah.
a pure horror focused group. The mentality and the vibes are completely different, and you feel comfortable. You know, you actually feel like everyone's on the same team, and they're not sticking the knives in each other's backs just to get up the ladder and be, I'm more popular. Now it's still
Well,
what you want, don't get me wrong.
Apart from
but
when
it's not
someone likes the
equivalent.
remake of Halloween,
Well, nobody's perfect, Here, but like I said, it's not David Gordon Green.
That got a lot of people back into Halloween, by the way. Yeah.
is our
People
joke.
hated Halloween until that. Yes, it's our joke.
It
Sometimes
wasn't Halloween 3. God, that was painful.
Oh, was
Oh
it?
God.
Yeah, we covered that. Oh my God, see, revisiting that and watching it again. Oh, that was bad.
8
Which
more
one?
days to Halloween.
Oh my god!
I wanted to put on one of the masks myself just to make it end.
I
Holy
love
crap,
that
that was
movie.
awful.
Oh my
dear.
god, I love it! I even wrote about that for
Wow.
horror news. Wow, I thought you were talking. I thought
Hold
the
on a minute.
big-
We're all meant to agree on the same thing. We'll have to be of the hive mind here. What's this individualism here and people having their own ideas? Who said
all
that
they
was
had.
allowed?
Yeah, I'll say, hey, how dare you? Yeah,
they had,
God.
they instead of calling it Halloween 3, if they would have just called it
Season of the Witch.
Halloween Presents or something. No, you don't want to drop the Halloween thing because that was the that was
Season
going
of the
to
Witch.
sell. That was going to sell tickets. That was going to be the thing that was going to guarantee that it would sell tickets. But don't call it Halloween 3. Just weave Halloween in differently. Because it made money. It made money, but people were disappointed because it didn't pick up where
Because it wasn't about Jason. No.
it just didn't pick up where Halloween 2 left
Michael
off. so-
Myers. Not Jason. Michael Myers.
They're interchangeable,
Michael
let's be
Myers.
honest.
Michael Myers.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
they are.
this is sound
They
very
are.
similar. Their dialogue's very similar.
And we just did a review on it. Oh my God. Duh.
Jason, I remember the last time I was here. Let's talk about Jason Lives. Oh my God. Let's the guy, you know what? He's dead. So what we'll do is we'll kill him some more. And the end result is he comes back to life. So, just
Yeah.
what are you doing? Just leave him. He's dead. Leave him there.
So I suppose the question is,
They've
how do
run
we,
out of
as
material.
we'll see some of this as well in the writing sphere. You see stuff getting churned out in tropes, and this is a fad now. We'll all do this and stuff. Is it important to keep an eye on the tropes to avoid them, or sorry, not the trends?
Yes.
Like reverse harem
No.
was a thing for a while. That was the super thing, and vampire erotica. Remember that was a whole thing for like 2 years.
Still is.
2 years.
Well, it'll never go away. But I mean, do you remember it was every
100
story
billion
just
years.
boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, definitely.
That's what killed the paperback from hell. And I won't call it a genre, but it was publication, you know, the financial success of it, just too much of it came out. They were cranking out too much. And if something became successful, they would copy it, and then they would copy it to the point of stupid. You know, like the Pack, you know, which was not a great book, but it still sells. It's been selling for 50 years. About pack of wild dogs attacking people. So then somebody comes up with
Did you ever see the film?
Something similar, wolves. They just rewrite the Pack with wolves. Or
you ever saw the film?
James Herbert.
It was actually reasonably well done.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you mean the one with Joe Don Baker?
Hmm?
Yeah, I remember that one. Yeah, I saw that. My God, that was oh God, long time ago. Wow, I show my age. That's another movie from the 70s. Just too much of it comes out. Too much of it's the same, and then the quality drops off, and then people stop buying, and that kills the genre. So eventually, it just cannibalizes.
That's right. But I mean, it's an interesting thing to raise, isn't it? Because again, just like any normal writing, you have to know what's happening in the stream, even if you're not writing to it. I would never advocate write to the market, because that's a bad idea. Because by the time you finish your book, the market's already moved on to the next thing. But keeping an eye on it is very a good move. Like Demi said, the move for horror fiction to kind of edge towards anthologies is definitely a thing, because traditional publishers just aren't picking it up right now, not like they used to.
No, they're not.
So that as a writer is useful to know, and probably interesting to know, and just how things are going. Like, there seems to be a decline right now in grimdark, even though it's still reasonably popular, but there's some kind of backlash going on at the moment, and cozy fiction's rising, which I just can't understand, because I can't get behind it. I'm not reading people going for cups of tea and stuff like that, but it seems to be
Easiest book I ever wrote.
But that's to do with, to John's point earlier, how the Matrix is getting dialed down, and reality is so shit that you just want to read about fucking Stardew Valley.
Go for a cup of tea, and they don't fight with each other, and nothing bad happens, and
Exactly. So how you write cozy horror, I'm not sure. I don't know if anybody's solved that yet.
That's antithesis to the horror genre, because the whole point of the horror genre is things going wrong. That's what we explore, is things aren't. If the sun's really bright in the sky and the birds are tweeting, something horrible is just 2 scenes away, because that's the setup.
Yes,
that's right.
Yes.
And that's personally what I love. You're just waiting for it. Yeah, come on.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But that definitely seems to be the way the market's shifting right now.
But cozy horror, I mean, let's be honest, that's what was the show? Grandma and the Wolf. I can't remember what the actual name of the story was, but that's the one where Grandma and the Wolf, Red
Riding Hood.
Yeah. And what happens instead is that the wolf has a splinter and gets taken to the vet.
Yeah, something like that. Horror. Yeah, maybe.
My one big splinter you have. There we go. Off to the
vet. We brought this up. We had there's a few of us on had a conversation, censorship and horror, and that's this has been prevalent. There's people who aren't horror fans, actually despise the genre, are inserting themselves into horror creation.
Really?
For the pure purpose of sanitizing it, and it pisses me off no end.
Yep.
That's the equivalent of me going into the romance section going, I really hate you romance people. You need more beheadings in it. Come on.
Yeah.
And, I would never do that. That's, that's bad.
No. Yeah, like you said.
The problem with it is that you don't have many distribution channels. So if you only have Apple, whatever, or Amazon Prime, you don't have 50 different places you can put a horror movie. You have a very small handful.
But even writing, they've done it with writing. That's
and MGM are now owned by Amazon. If you look on the MGM opening screen, it says an Amazon company. So
if you put something out that's just a little too violent or too controversial, you drag in your distributor, and the distributor doesn't want to deal with it unless you're making tons of money. So they say, look, tone it down. I can't do this. I can't carry this. You got to tone it down. It's costing me money. It's costing me time. Tone it down.
Yeah.
So it's more of a business decision than censor it. Nobody pays attention to somebody. Oh, get rid of that horror.
I don't think they're censoring, because you think it's like the Winnie the Pooh film, Blood and Honey.
Mm-hmm.
I use the word Winnie the Pooh film loosely.
Yep.
But at the same time, that was crap.
Mm.
Yeah. No
Yeah,
censorship
of course.
whatsoever on that film.
Yeah.
But sometimes the reason why they censor it is actually to make it sensible rather than anything else. Because if all you've got is splat, 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 that's not actually interesting, is it?
No,
That's not in any way.
No, it's boring.
So you sometimes there's that moment where someone goes, "Yeah, let's have another killing here," and you're like, "No, bored. Let's have some talk. Let's have some story there. Let's."
Cameron keeps trying to convince me this is the best series ever, and it's it's modern geniuses, and I'm looking going, nah. And he goes, why didn't you like the second one? And I was like, just they completely changed the tone and everything else, even from the first one. It wasn't even tongue in cheek. If it had been tongue in cheek, a bit of a laugh, I'd have gotten bored, but it was trying to take itself way too seriously. And I saw some of the director's other work, like The Curse of Humpty Dumpty and stuff. That has to be one of the worst films, and I've watched some terrible things in my time. But The Curse of Humpty Dumpty, by the same director or producer of Blood and Honey, it was a snore fest. It was bad. Like, you're just wanting your life to end rather than finish off the movie.
Have you seen Catnado yet?
No.
Oh, God.
No.
Got to watch Catnado.
Go now.
Oh, my
Make us
God.
all
This
again.
is ridiculous.
Stay the feck away and be cheerful that you did.
Oh, my God.
I've already almost given up on life after the Sharknado series. Like, we covered all 6 movies, and
Brilliant.
Oh, man.
I was just losing the will to live each iteration. It's just like, why did I decide to do it? Why was this an idea? Oh my God.
Poor life choices there in the.
That was, but
wow.
I do it so others don't have to. Consider it a warning, a public service.
The bandwagon. The bandwagon I'm finding really hard at the moment to overcome is this token character shit that's going on. I know it's been going on for a while, but I'm over it. I just don't tell me to put a disabled person in my freaking book. Don't tell me to put an Asian character and then a fat white person, and don't tell me to put those in my book. Thank you very fucking much, because I'm going to annihilate the whole lot of them. So it's just I don't know. There's a particular group out there that manages to get me upset quite a lot, even though they keep asking me to come back and fucking to be a committee member with them.
Yeah, and then some people are talking
It's
about,
just
take out these sensitive words. Don't say mad. Don't say murder. Don't say this.
Don't say
upsetting.
crazy.
It's like the whole point of horror is upsetting.
In order to
exactly
overcome problems, you got to face them. Because I was writing a book called The Mist on the Mountain, based in my village, Blangarrow and Pontycummer down the road. So I thought, I'm going to upset some of the locals here, so why not include the locals? So I put a message out on Facebook saying, does anybody want to be included in the book? I'm after a couple of people to be murdered and a couple of people to be, sideliners. And, I've got a waiting list for people waiting to be killed in the sequel.
That was part of the reasons it was a sequel, wasn't it? Because
the book went down really well, and I've sold hundreds just alone in the village. It's both on ebook and physical book.
Yeah.
But I've got a waiting list of people who want to be killed. And I thought that's the perfect way to get over these things of upsetting someone. Because guaranteed I was going to upset someone here.
But here's the thing I've found with the horror genre is, for a horror story, you naturally look to the reaches of the earth. You want that tribe on the top of a Tibetan hill with a strange ritual. You want to go and find that story and hear about it and include it. That's always been the natural curiosity of a horror creator. It's, oh, there's a scary story they've got. I want to go and hear about that. I think that's utter nonsense that's going on. It's nothing to do with including people. It's actually more about powers, and you will write what I tell you to write, and you will only write if we approve it.
Yes.
And it's that as opposed to actually anything benevolent. And it winds me up too. It's virtue signaling and it's the good guy badge, and I utterly despise that because I see the fake smile. It's that sort of sneer before somebody plants a knife in your back. It's that sort of person I have no time for.
I've never across anybody forcing you to include things, not in a novel.
There are groups out there. There's a reason why I left loads of writing groups because there's actually active groups out there. Sensitivity readers, they're known as,
right.
And they're trying to include it. And there's certain groups that are like, we are the entry into horror. You can only be a horror creator if you come through us.
Yeah,
and if you don't, and we will approve you. And if you don't go against our orthodox, or if you go against our orthodoxy, you don't exist.
Yeah.
Part of the reason I'm setting up what I'm setting, because I have heard, like I said, of how many interviews I've done in the 4 years I was challenging. I mean, I've spoke to loads of people, and there's people still terrified to talk about it. And I keep trying to bring it up, social media and social media groups, and people shy away. But off cam, I get told about it, and this happened to them and that, and I've experienced it myself. Like, Facebook's the worst platform for nastiness. People talk about other ones, but to me, Facebook's the only platform where people have DM'd me just for promoting other authors. What are you doing fucking promoting indie authors? You twat, they're all shit. You're a dick. In my DMs.
Wow.
This is before I started copying and pasting and humiliating people. I've noticed since I started doing that, nobody DMs me anymore.
Yes.
I've not heard anything that extreme, not on Facebook.
Dale's problem is the PC brigade. They want you to include someone who's black, someone who's Chinese. I mean, I included a Chinese person in one of my books but he's my partner, and I killed him off.
That's just their daily fantasy, though. We're the co-stars writing his books. And see what happens to you.
But it's probably the PC brigade who've never read a book in their lives.
Well, they've never talked to anybody outside their bubble. That's the problem.
Well, there's nothing wrong with diversity.
Well, that's the thing. If you're not in the club,
no, there's nothing wrong with it.
There's a difference between that and
doing it for the sake of doing it. Like you said, to your point, it's the tokenism, isn't it? Why not write a story where either it's central to the story or it's not? Don't have somebody, intentionally diverse just because you need to have a diverse person in it. That defeats the object of it.
I think this goes right back to the start between knowing the difference between a human and an AI.
Yeah.
You think about it, you'll write about someone you have a personal connection to, or a human story or a human encounter, and it has to be personal. And it has that comes across, you know that in the back of your head if it's genuine.
Yeah.
Moot that against somebody, I am inserting this because I have to, because I feel it's the right thing to do. I'm ticking boxes. You feel that. Look at the movie industry. Look at how many franchises have burned to the ground because of that shit. It's not genuine. There's not a genuine bone in anybody's body. And that's the difference.
Yeah. I would much rather watch an alien movie where one of the characters just happens to be gay rather than, an alien movie where like everything is kind of like
there was
pushed towards.
Do you remember that shitty sci-fi series with Katie Sackhoff?
Yeah.
I think it lasted only one season before they cancelled, but it was basically everyone in the ship was shagging each other. That's why the ship kept crashing, because that's all they were doing. There was no storyline apart from who was shagging who. That was it. And Katie Sackhoff appeared in her underwear every so often. And it was this
Which show was this?
It only lasted one season. I can't remember the title of it. It was something to do with a big crystal landed on Earth, and they're trying to find out the crystal, but then they just spend the entire series shagging each other. And you never knew anything more about the crystal or the force field or where it came from or what they were going to do.
Oh my
Because that's
Truthfully, I
all they were
don't know
doing.
about any of this,
Was
so-
every iteration of shagging to get in, and that's all it was about. I put the same. See, as erotic fiction, I think it's the most laughable genre because there was one I read and somebody climbed on top of somebody else's love rocket, and that once I read that line, I was out. I was on the floor,
Well,
just in
I mean,
stitches. I
you
couldn't take
are
it
out at
seriously
that point,
anymore.
so yeah.
You're just like, why? That's not even remotely fucking.
Yeah, that's not. Yeah.
There's another short movie somebody sent me, and they don't agree with my review.
Shut
of it,
up. Shut up.
But all I'll say is they're wrong. That was the funniest. That was the
Oh.
funniest thing I ever watched in my life. I mean, I was in tears, but apparently that's the wrong opinion to have.
See, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
No, you're allowed that opinion.
Snow
Hey?
White and the Seven Dwarfs.
No.
That's a short movie.
Yeah, all right.
He's back.
All right, dad joke. Dad joke's back. And we won't mention the film.
I don't
We will
make
not
jokes
mention the
about.
film.
I don't make jokes about dwarves, so I wouldn't stoop so low.
Oh.
No.
Oh man, that's bad.
Oh.
No, I think there's.
Okay.
I think it's all down to being genuine, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you do
Yeah.
anything or include anyone and it's genuine, people know. If you're not genuine, you just have
Yeah.
a false facade.
Yeah.
It screams at you. It's like there's
Yeah.
loads of people do this sort of stuff, and they're so fake, and it really comes across. Okay, it's nauseating, isn't it? When you know someone's not being genuine,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, you can see right through it.
you do, and it's awful, and I hate that, and I don't want that's one thing I don't
Yep.
want to be, and I don't virtue signal, but I think you have seen over the years in the channel, I don't care who anybody is. As long as you're all right with me, I'm all right with you, and I prefer one-to-one basis of,
Yep.
are we cool? Sweet, crack on, and that's it. That's all I require in life, and I think we need to get back to that. But it's people with ulterior
It's like-
motives, and they're not about what they're saying. And I think this is what we need to push back against, just by demonstrating, here's how it's done.
Yeah.
And that's, like I said, I want to be part of the solution, not the problem. I don't want to just sit and shake my fist at this guy.
Yeah.
I'm hoping with this little project that it's just another avenue for somebody to tell their stories. Just even if it's only every couple of months it pops up, and people return, great. If people don't, fair enough. It's the same with this show. Like, I'm surprised people come back, again and again, and some people come up and I've never heard from them. You just can't plan for it, tell, but it's at least it's genuine, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
There was a book came out 78, 79 called Captain Blood, and if you ever saw the Chuck Norris movie Hero and the Terror, by the same, that was actually based on a book by the same author. Captain Blood came out in hardcover, and when they released the paperback, they removed 80 pages. When you're talking about 80 pages of offensive material.
Wow.
And the book costs a fortune. You're going to spend hundreds of dollars to get copies of that hardcover. But I read Hero and the Terror, and when you read Hero and the Terror, I can't even imagine what they cut out of the second book, because I can't even imagine. And this was the 1970s. They didn't censor anything then. And this was over the top for then. And the third of the book they removed. And the funny part is they didn't care the first time around. Nobody cared, and and then they got the backlash from an audience that was like, you went way too far.
You have to read Searching for the Perfect Butterfly when it comes out. It's a good book.
Cool.
Well,
I would-
everybody,
Never
you
heard of it,
may
have
have to forgive me at this point in time because I'm actually up for work in 6 hours.
Oh, right. Okay.
So,
Mhm.
John,
Brill,
really appreciate you
however,
coming
I
on.
will catch you again sometime soon. Good to
Absolutely.
meet everybody, and I'll see you all soon. Right?
So,
See you
Right, John,
later.
thank you very
Thank
much.
You-
Take care.
Yeah, so, God, we've been on over 2 hours.
Did anybody read Jack Ketchum?
Ah, God, years ago.
Wow, Jack Ketchum. I remember Off Season. Off Season was violent, and it sold 300,000 copies. And but they said, look, you can sell, but you can't do this again. And ruined his career. I mean, didn't ruin his career, but the next books didn't sell because they were, he was a shock writer. It just, you take the shock out of it, you don't get Jack Ketchum. But the version that came out of Off Season was actually censored. And back in the 90s, he found a draft of it that reinserted, the one of the pre-censored versions. And I said to myself, my God, like what? When you read Off Season, you're like, well, what the hell did they find offensive if they found this inoffensive? And I went back and I read it. God, it was just wow. But then I found out that there were actually 3 versions. The original version was even more over the top than the other 2. But he said that he lost it. He didn't, it was done on a manual typewriter, no copy, so it was gone forever. But yeah, those are just examples
Yeah.
back in the day.
The word
Too
offensive.
much.
The word offensive is a funny thing, isn't it? And Ricky Gervais hits this on the head totally. He says, if someone says that's offensive, he says it's not offensive. You find it offensive.
Yeah.
There could be a million other people who don't find it offensive.
Yep.
So is it offensive?
Do we
It's-
write to
well,
offend people? No, we
No.
don't write to offend
Hopefully.
people. We
I've never
write.
joke.
Down and
Yeah.
even making a video or writing anything, I've never went, oh, I'm gonna really annoy people. That's what I want to do. Because I could sit and do
doesn't sell.
clickbait crap,
Yeah.
and I would find it exhausting. Like, you know me, I like the bait Scream fans and Jenna Ortega fans. I think they're funny to poke at because they went at me, randomly. But I'll do 1 or 2 and then I get bored. Because I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't want to do this. I can't imagine being like, just being your whole creative process. Who am I going to wind up today? Because it's empty.
Well, it's like with trigger warnings. I mean, back in the day, like when they used to do painted covers, you knew what you were getting in that book. You could tell by the cover, the way what to expect and whether or not you should avoid that book. Today, I think just a lot of blandness in the covers and a lot of the blandness in some of the promotions and the fact that everything's thrown together. Again, if you bought certain books from certain publishers, you knew what you were getting, and if you didn't know, you read one book and you saw that publisher's name on a book, you never went back. But today, everything's all dumped into the same distribution channel. And that's so, you got somebody who's a romance writer or a romance reader who says, well, let me buy this horror book. And it's just way over the top for them. They go complain to the distributor and the distributor.
Yeah.
It's a distraction. It's PR. Now they got public relations issues. They got to issue press releases. Yada, yada, yada.
On the book. If it says
It's
horror
kind of a
on the
clue
book or
that
horror
you're
on the
going to
movie,
find some
that's
uncomfortable
sort of an
material
idea. Yeah.
Well,
Exactly. So if you come back and complain, you're a moron.
I mean, have you
Because
found
you
any of
can't
this?
read.
I always put on the top of my books the new horror thriller from Stephen Knight, and then they know it's a horror thriller. And common sense should say, "Oh, horror! It's going to be scary or bloodthirsty in some way."
But Okay, I have to admit there is one novel I've got which I still haven't published yet, but it's got disclaimers in the front, and that's because I've used some very controversial. It's called One Dead Sister. It's a horror story, but it's also it's a lot like The Lovely Bones. It's got a lot of that prose and a lot of stuff and emotion and all that stuff in it, but there's rape, murder, cannibalism, a demon, lots of things that even though you're a horror fan, you might not want to watch, or you might not want to read a rape scene, right? Or you might not want to read this happening to this person. So I think as a responsible author, that if there is some trigger stuff, like, you know, horror is horror, generic Hollywood shit, but when you come to, say, like these deep, dark, really oppressive books, I think there is some responsibility that the author has to take, and that is to let that person know that what you're about to read is this, and this. Because it's not just Jason and Freddy. This is an actual, it has happened.
That was considered offensive at one point.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
But
at that time, that was
I
considered
don't care.
extreme, and I think there's more onus on the person.
Yeah.
If you've got something that you don't rather not deal with, I think it's on the person as opposed to everybody else, because this is, you're seeing it happening with plays. You're seeing it happen, you know, everything has to be spoiled, as in you know exactly what's going to happen. You see it with movies. There's the trailers give away the entire movie. You know, I've got this point that there's no suspense, there's no surprise anymore, and that's ruining the experience. And sometimes the catharsis
but it's also
is the thing.
adding it. It's also adding to it sometimes as well,
But,
if you know what I mean. Sometimes the disclaimer can do the opposite effect, and it does also warn people, but it also gets horror viewers more intrigued and, okay, how are you going to mix those elements
I've seen that with the
together?
extreme,
That's interesting.
I use the word extreme horror. You know, things getting labeled as extreme horror, and it's usually bland. You know, and you're disappointed. You know, I've seen people jump on that bandwagon. Back to the churning out the stuff, you know, just on trends. Extreme horror was a trend for a while there, and a lot of stuff was not. But they gave it that to try and sell it, and then people were disappointed, and then it ruined in my opinion, ruined it. Demi, you've been quiet there. Are you okay?
Huh?
Are you okay?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna tell you I have to hop off now. But thank you so much for having me.
Oh, right, sorry.
I'm ready.
No, great to have you. Just went quiet there. It's like, didn't want you to feel left out, or we're working on this.
You're good.
It's nice to have someone beautiful on here, Demi.
I'm waiting for a time. They'd be like, I didn't want to interrupt anybody, so I was like, So yeah.
Did you hear that, Demi? I said it's nice to have someone beautiful on here for once.
Huh?
He's trying to be funny, but as always, he feels. No, Demi, thank you very much. Really appreciate you coming on. Hopefully, we'll get you back on stage.
Bye, Demi.
Yeah, bye, Demi.
See ya.
There's some
I remember when.
chat going. I don't know if you've seen it. There's a couple of questions in chat, I think.
Oh, right. That's sorry. I'm sort of getting them grow. Well, as usual, we went on our usual tangents, and you can tell the hardcore members of the newbies are like, what is this podcast? You can tell the newbies about, oh, this isn't normal. These people are all mad.
One thing about extreme horror, I remember when they used to call it splatterpunk, and that was just that was just a cooler name for it. I don't know why they got rid of it or changed it. Made it too generic.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It got watered down because everyone jumped on the bandwagon, and
no, it's still violent, but they call it extreme horror. Like, why did it used to be called splatterpunk? Splatterpunk was cool. That was a cool name for it, and now they don't use that anymore.
Yeah,
that's old news now.
That's the problem with trends, isn't it? Beside your own, what was everyone's favorite story in the book? Oh, that's a bit of a that's where we all start falling out with
each other. That's a loaded question.
Yeah,
I haven't got my copy.
Only one person will be happy with that answer.
It's on the way.
I'll say mine.
I know. Mine's on the way.
Yeah.
It's traveling by boat coming to New Zealand.
Somebody,
It'll
somebody's
be
out
here
doing
in
it.
6 months.
What else?
Oh dear.
Does everyone have a
Have you-
story
Come
in
on.
mind for the
got
next
I know.
volume? That's a conversation offline about the next. Each volume's going to have its own theme, and as Gail knows me very well,
Demons.
the plan is to get darker and darker as we go along this journey. You know, starting off nice and easy, but you know me, I am a twisted individual,
Mhm.
and
Yes.
that's I want to bring people on a journey and go to dark places and that. But at the same time, I'm not going to sit and warn people.
Hold on, Cole.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
worries, man. It's like I'm not going to warn people. Oh, this is going to upset you. I hope so. You know, I hope you feel
Come
something.
darker.
Wah!
You actually suit that.
Did anybody read Slugs by Sean Hudson?
Oh yeah, brilliant book.
Yeah.
I'm meant to be on
Yeah.
with somebody wants to come on and review that, but schedules are not playing nice at the moment. But she wants to come on and review that at some stage, so I've been holding back to
Wow.
talk about that. But yeah,
Oh,
God,
I'll have to check that out.
yeah, it's a book and there's a movie based on it as well. Just cheesy as hell. It's fun.
Ah.
You know, that was the VHS days.
But it was
Are you
fun. You know what I mean? Once again, there was a sense of, and even the VHS, there's, I think I've talked about this, there was a sense of wanting to entertain you. You know, we want you to have a good time. Hope you do. Come along for the ride.
They just couldn't
Yeah.
make enough money with it. That's the. I mean, if you did an original film, you just couldn't make a lot of money on that unless you were Canon and you could get some money back through sale, like overseas sales. But if you're just an independent producer trying to get a VHS out there, it just really, you weren't going to generate the revenue you could do today. And not that you can make a lot of revenue today. So, their budgets reflected that. That was no crowdfunding in those days. So you couldn't make $100,000.
Print and demand changed the game.
Yeah.
So you didn't have to set up a printer and do 1,000 book run or 1,000 copy run of something, minimum. Print and demand, you can do print and demand Blu-rays and all now. That's become a thing.
Wow.
Oh yeah. That Warner Archives, they really Warner Brothers has so much stuff that they can't commercially release because the interest isn't there. So they came out with Warner Archives, which is they do DVDs or Blu-ray. I know DVDs, but I don't know if they do Blu-rays on demand. And you can get old TV shows, you can get old movies, you can get all kinds of stuff that is custom. You might be the only person who ordered it. They print it, they send it, and they send it out to you. And that's
wow.
Yeah.
See, this is where they messed up with streaming, in my opinion. They all tried to jump on the streaming bandwagon, and they didn't have the model. Like, there was a clear model, went to the cinema, came out for home rental, became available to, and then later on became available to purchase TV, maybe 2 years down the line. There was a set pattern there. Streaming should have fitted in maybe about the home rental bit, but they didn't. They slammed streaming over the top of cinema, and they just crushed the whole model. And everyone tried to be a streamer.
Yeah, it was. They put it in the theater. They grounded it. They grinded as much as they could get out of it. Then it went to TV or cable or VHS or whatever. Today, there's a huge audience that just doesn't go to the theater, and they just go straight to streaming, and they pay-per-view it. And the people who go to the movies, it's just because they like the movies.
I can't justify spending 15 quid. The only time I did was what was it? One of the Godzilla ones. The
Godzilla minus.
No. It was one of the dopey ones, not the good one.
All right.
It's one of the stupid ones. I stupidly got because I'd seen I liked the first one of that series that came out. I think it was the second one, King of the Monsters. So I stupidly bought that as a home rental, 15 quid or something. I can't even remember. Was it Amazon or YouTube? One or two did it. And I felt robbed. I spent all that money to watch something online.
Yeah.
And it was rental as well. It wasn't like you owned it. And I'm just like,
yeah.
I felt dirty.
I used to.
I didn't really been validated, by doing that. And I'm like, oh, never again.
I used to watch Walking Dead on Amazon. I used to buy it for $1.99 an episode, because you could pay $3.99 for high quality or $2.99 for like the high definition. I said, I don't need high definition. Give me the fuzzy stuff. And I just paid $1.99 for it. And I did that with, Walking Dead. I did it with not Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul. I think I might have did it with maybe, was it Ray Donovan? It might have been Ray Donovan. Yeah, I think I did. I think I bought Ray Donovan from somebody, but that was kind of cool, But when I look back at it, I think I overpaid for it, because, it comes out to like $40 by the time, no, 20, 30, $40 by the time you finish everything up.
I miss DVD stores. That's what they need to bring back. I wish they'd bring those back.
Well,
yeah, there's just no money.
It wouldn't work.
People actually offer DVDs free of charge on the Garou Hub, and because they can't get rid of them. Not shops who take
not
them.
now.
The only physical, when I buy physical media, really it's special editions or things like that, because I buy a lot of old stuff, but there are movies I've seen 2, 3, 4 times over the years, but I never heard the commentary tracks or and that's kind of why I buy them, because I like listening. It's like I got I get like a Paul Naschy movie that I've probably seen twice. Not something that I would want to. If it didn't have a commentary track, I wouldn't buy it. I'll put it to you that way.
You're talking about commentary. Did you ever read the real story of Friday the 13th? I've told Colin it. I've got the book. It's about that big and about that thick.
Oh.
Friday the 13th never had a story to start with. The guys went and said they put out this thing trying to get the funding, saying the most horrific horror film you'll ever see, but they never actually had a story.
That was not uncommon.
Wow.
And yeah, I've got like I said, I got the book. Someone bought me the huge book, and it's got all the pictures in, etc. And Friday the 13th never actually had a story to it.
No,
they just come up with the title, Friday the 13th.
Yep, that was how AIP
want
did
funding for it. So
that's how AIP would come up with a title for a movie. They say, come up with something that sells. Invasion of the Saucer-Men, and I say, wow, yeah, that sounds cool. The next person they call was not a screenwriter. They went to the marketing department and said, give me a poster for what? Invasion of the Saucer-Men. Well, what do you want on it? Just try to come up something that sells. Just give me something, and then they come up with a poster, and they would give the poster to a writer, and writer would look at the poster and say, okay, I'll come up with something. They were writing to the marketing material. So that was how they used to do it in the old days.
Yeah.
They worked backwards. It wasn't, I mean, everybody thinks you can write the spec script and sell, but you can do it. You can do reverse.
Yeah. You can have the idea. Okay, here's what we want. And that might work just as well, as in give somebody focus. They know exactly they've already got the picture in their mind and stuff. And
a lot of people don't realize the writer isn't always the person who sets the ball in motion. The writer could be the last person who's contacted. The producer, the marketing people, and whoever they want to cast in the movie, if they want to get a name, and then they go backwards. That happens. Like a lot of the publishing houses, like they say what do you call what was it? Richard Blade, the Richard Blade books. Somebody sat around and said, well, Conan's make a lot of money. James Bond makes a lot of money. Can you come up with a combination James Bond and Conan? And they send a spy into an interdimension, and he lands in this sordid planet environment, and you get a really wacky premise that starts out as a James Bond book, and then they drop it. It becomes a Conan book, and then it comes back to James Bond at the end. And but that was not something a writer came up with. It was the publisher, and they hired somebody. They interviewed different writers, and they hired who they hired. They actually had 2 or 3 different writers. Actually, 2 of them, yeah, and then they had a third writer at the end. But so some of that stuff is just marketing.
Yeah, and what? It doesn't matter as long as it works. That's the thing.
I'm going to have to shoot, because like I said, I just got in when I contacted you, and I've got to take doggy out and
Yeah, no worries. I'm going to wrap up anyway because I think we'll
shower and
just waiting for Dell to come back and then
yeah.
wrap up any roads because yeah, this has been a great chat anyway because like I said, it wasn't going to be 2 hours of by the book. It's great. You know, I want to do what we normally do and just get us on and just talk a load of waffle and just let people get to see the names and faces behind it. Now,
I
hopefully it
made a
works.
film.
It encourages people to buy, and we haven't frightened you off.
I've made a film called Christmas Presents. And at the end, I went, "It's a wrap! It's a wrap!"
Thanks everyone. This all good. Check it out. Really good day.
Your sound's going a bit weird, Colin, I think.
Oh,
yeah, your sound's good.
Are we back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Say that bit again.
I said there are a lot of good stories in this. There's even a ship one at the end, but don't mind that. Just gloss over it. But no, thanks everyone for taking part, and here's hoping many more in the future. So just leaves me to say, as usual, keep updated with the channel, do the type of tricky things, and remember to keep it creepy, keep it horrific.